I met a gypsy.
Just like that, Geoff Ballard. Welcome to the Gypsy Tales podcast, mate.
Thank you, sir.
Just switched all official real quick. That's the last official thing of this is just the intro.
Yep.
So I've been wanting to get you on the podcast for a very long time. You're
Thank
a very
you.
requested guest, but I'm glad that we've waited a while to, like, honestly, people have asked for you to come on here for like three
Old
years
school
now.
guys.
Yeah. So, but we didn't really know each other back then.
No,
but
that's true.
I'm lucky enough now to have spent a bit of
Little
time.
bit of time, yeah, with motoed and a few things, yeah.
Yeah, got some good rides in and stuff like that, and and I'm so glad because over that time you've become a person where I'm like, that guy there, that's the guy I want to be. That is a guy that is living his best life.
Well, that's pretty true. I certainly feel lucky that I've had my life like I've had, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then so last night you sent me through a bit of a blurb of, just some dot points. What an insane life to have lived. Like, I just sat there reading it last night. Right. This is crazy.
Yeah, well, it was funny because I was going, how does all this podcast stuff work? And, we know each other, but we don't know well, let's say. And then, it's like we sort of thought maybe it's an old school thing, but, you had to be a bit more organised in the old days because there wasn't mobile phones and everything wasn't easy, and you used to have to write letters and just be organised. If you said to some guy you're going to meet him somewhere, well, that's when you met him or whatever. You didn't have to just top it up saying, hey, I'm 5 minutes late.
Exactly, which is exactly what I did to you today. I was like, hey, we're going to push this back half an hour. You are right, eh? It's a totally different way of getting stuff done. And even I think about that a lot with like maps and things like that. I remember, when we were growing up, the first trips that we did up to Cape York, I actually remember my dad with like maps out and, like kind of looking over his shoulder, looking at maps. And then I remember a couple of times as a kid coming to Brizzy, Dad would have to like pick up a Brisbane Rolodex, and whenever we'd go see like cousins and shit like that, and you'd be looking done.
We called
all
them
of it
Gregory's.
done.
I think Gregory's was a pretty common term, and you were lucky if you had a map. Sometimes you had to just write down info from something, but it's different times for sure, and there's not a lot wrong with now, but I feel very lucky that I've been through the era that I have. It's been amazing, in many, many ways of change and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool.
The one thing, though, that hasn't changed, that's probably going to be the theme of this podcast, is your love of motorcycles. Just the genuine love. The thing that's right at the middle is how much you love riding. And the other day, this is a perfect example of Geoff Ballard. The other day, you came to the track with a 350 with the most wacky, modern... it's almost like pre-modern. You know what I mean? Like, people don't even know what it is yet.
The front end,
So you've got these crazy forks that you are riding, which I'm sure we'll get to. I'd like to talk about that at some point. But then, in the same van, you bought a Mako. And you love both of those things, So you have spanned all of these generations, but through it all, you just still love riding a dirt bike. Yeah,
well, that Mako's an 81, and of course I started a bit earlier than that. But right now, or for a while, my van is my garage. When I'm up here, not all the time, but at the moment it is. So and I spent forever running race teams, 24 years, so, everything had to be pristine and, new graphics, new all the time, and after 24 years you get a little bit sick of that, so now I'm a bit of a grot, and my bikes stay in the back and you pull them out and
filters stay dirty.
People go, wow, you haven't cleaned it. I go, yeah, well, there's no inspectors, there's no bonus seconds or points for that, so, sometimes obviously you've got to present and do some maintenance and stuff, but it's minimum as much as I can be that way anyway.
And the other thing that I'll say as well, to kind of extend on what I said before, is you still would have done the most laps out of everybody the other day. On that day where you bought an old bike, a new bike, and you were the frother that did the most laps.
Well, I like doing laps, and I can still, surprisingly, in many ways, I can moto, and I've even done 45-minute motos, just seeing if I can still do it. My bones ache a bit, especially my knees, but Yeah, it's sort of something. I don't think I use as much energy as a lot of guys, or something like that. You know, there's something that's working for me. So, but it's fun. I like that sort of thing. I try and do a few laps each time, and depends on setup and depends on the track and different things. But when I like it, like the conditions were when we were riding, it was easy to just keep going. You know, loved it.
That was a good day of riding.
It was a beauty. Yeah.
We had like the little group text going afterwards, and that was one of those days where I don't know whether it's like 6 foot and offshore, you know, like the weather was good, the track was good, the crew was awesome, and I guess it's crazy that in 50 plus years, 50 years this year of holding an MA license, you still haven't got sick of it.
No, it's pretty easy to not get sick of it, in my opinion, because as long as your body's hanging in there and you're enjoying it, what else are you going to do? I've had goes at a few other things, and nothing comes close for me anyway, of just getting on a bike. And like, you're a surfer, I've never been, but if the waves are shit, then you don't ride. I mean, you don't surf, and then depending if it's snow skiing or water skiing, it's got to you can it might be a bit crappy with dust, or I love mud, but you can do it. You can just keep doing it. So it's a great sport, and it's physical enough to know you've ridden and feel good and just keep doing it. Yeah, it's hard to stop doing it more than it's hard to keep going at the moment anyway.
So you had a pretty interesting start to your riding career. So you were born in Avalon, and then you moved into the Blue Mountains, which you were not a fan of initially.
No.
But then you found a dirt bike. Yeah. And isn't it crazy when you look all the way backwards, you're like, wow, this like lifelong obsession, business, sport, everything, social, everything just started way back then.
Everything, yeah. Yeah, so parents, in a way, it was, I guess it's typical for a lot of parents who don't understand, or even if they do understand, they're a bit nervous of riding these bikes,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was just a kid, lived at Avalon, and then at 9 years old or whatever, moved to the mountains, and, it's new schools and nervous and whatever, and just mates aren't there, so just wasn't enjoying it. I went from living in Avalon to having to milk a cow every morning, and just a little farm my parents bought, and so it was a big change, and I really didn't like it that much, and I can't remember. I mean, it's hard when it's this many years. I remember certain things really well, but anyway, it was a year or two until one of my mates said, "Hey, I got this bike, and let's go for a ride in the afternoon." And there was fire trails everywhere, and still is to some extent. And we jumped on. He had a TC 120. It's a pretty unusual bike. It had a split gearbox thing. You could make high-low ratio. It was a bit of a weird, bike.
Yeah, right.
But we used to double. He used to double me, and he was the rider at first. Not a great rider, but much better than me. I hadn't even ridden. So, we used to just go flat out like crazy kids, and there was hardly anyone on the trails. But then every now and then, a four-wheel drive or something come the other way, and we just peel off into the bush and endo and get up laughing, and the people in the four-wheel drive were freaking out. But it was just so much fun, and then the parents got a hold of some info that I was doing it and just frowned on it, just absolutely frowned on it. Yeah.
What was their background for them to be like upset about it?
Well,
or was it just like overprotective parents, or?
Yeah, I think it was a bit that way, but the thing that my parents did most for me throughout my whole career, even though they never gave me $1, was my old man was a pilot. He came out of the Second World War flying Kitty Hawks, and then went straight into Qantas. And he flew for Qantas for 32 years, and he was a pretty senior captain, and so family get free trips, so we travel a lot as a family. Not the motorbike races, but I could also get cheap travel, so that helped me a lot, but my parents just I wasn't even allowed to talk about it. If I brought up anything about motorbikes, it just was a bombardment, so I just learned to shut up and just press on. And I kept, I didn't have a bike for a while, but I bought a Suzuki 70 step through, and that was pretty funny. It was all like $50 sort of stuff. And I actually went in a race in it and bent the frame and just a club day thing. It was what they used to call a black event.
Yeah.
Which meant it wasn't sanctioned by the, at the time ACU, which was now MA, but confusing, stupid name. It was Auto Cycle Union, and if you look up Auto Cycle in the dictionary, it doesn't exist, so it's a bit strange. But anyway, it sort of started that way, and then used to just go around. My mother especially loved me doing something. It was like you'd wake up in the morning. And I had a brother and a sister, but we used to share the same bedroom, and they would, we would think, shit, what are we going to do? Mum's going to come in soon. She's going to say, what are you doing today? So if it's a weekend, and if you didn't have something organised, she'd just give you jobs. So we used to just try and work around it, Yeah. So she liked us having experiences and travelling, and that helped, of course. That's why I sort of managed to get around different places quite cheaply, and I had within a pretty short time, I had a little lawn mowing business in the Blue Mountains, and was making pretty good money for a kid, just sort of, after school and different times. And there was a lot of vacant lots in Winmalee then, and I think the council had something to keep the grass a bit shorter, and so there was plenty of people wanting me because I was a bit cheaper than another mower guy or something. But I had a little thing going there that let me sort of do what I wanted to do a bit more,
Yeah, nice. And then so you get you get your first bike. Like, where did you keep it and stuff if your parents weren't like...
Yeah, I kept it at my mate's place, the guy who had the first bike. Yeah,
right.
And his parents, it was I don't know. I didn't think that much of it, but if it was out of sight, it was fine,
Yeah.
And, where are you going? Oh, I'm going around to Craig's place. And it was just like, yeah, cool. And, they probably knew he's probably going to ride those bloody motorbikes, but what do they do? So it was just one of those things where my mother especially would just she'd sort of squeeze something out of me, like, what's going on? I go, oh, I'm going to do that. You're going to go riding, aren't you? And then I wouldn't say anything, and she'd go, when are you going to give up these bloody motorbikes? It was like it was never, a fad. It turns out never. It was like a little fad, and surely you're going to get over it in another week, but pretty hard to get over it all. So so she worked on it, and she didn't win.
I wonder then if how much your parents kind of pushed back against you riding, and the fact that you had to keep it at somebody else's house, if that like started to really get this desire, like real legitimate desire, because most kids do go through fads, right? And I think that, like, in my life, it's funny. Like, I had a lawn mowing business as well. That's how I bought my first motorbike. Like, it just wasn't a thing that we could do. And the fact that we couldn't have not that we couldn't have bikes, but it just wasn't something that mum and dad were able to get for us when we were super young. And like that desire, man, like I wanted it so much, and I took all these odd jobs, and when I could get a job at like a video store, I worked there, and then I'd go to the supermarket after that. So I don't know, I think about that in my own life, because it just created this like crazy obsession that's lasted all the way through my life so far. So I wonder if that plays into it.
Well, I think for sure, because it's you who wants to do it. It's not something that your dad did. He rode bikes and he goes, hey, have a go at this, and you go, oh, it's a bit of fun, and he kind of maybe wants you to do it more. I mean, if you get something easy, you can maybe give it up easier, but if you have to work at it, you're not going to give up on it. And of course there's different stages of your riding career or life or whatever that you go, oh man, there's a setback, but I'm not going to give up on that. So it makes you probably hungrier in a way too. You might sort of feel like, oh man, that guy's got everything, and you just do what you do. But escaping motorcycling and doing something else wasn't even on the cards. So it was funny as we went through the earlier years, and then it was quite hilarious. And then eventually, my mother sort of turned around, and she actually became the best thing ever, because if we jump forward a bit, it was like I just want to go overseas. I don't want to be here, and I didn't have any money. They never gave me $1. They wouldn't give me $1 towards that. So I'd been in the background trying to work out how I could make it work, and I'd already been over, and I'd worked at the Mako factory. And you know, that was a big step for a teenager to sort of leave home by yourself. I was a bit, you know, sort of homesick in a way, but it was easy to just keep going because I was, you know, focused on what I was wanting to do. But then I sort of went, no, I want to do I was doing the German championships, living in Germany, working at the Mako factory and that sort of stuff. And I did the 6 day in Germany that year. This is 79. But then 80, I decided I wanted to try and maybe do the World Enduro Championships or something. And you know, Anthony Gunter's brother, Terry Gunter.
Yeah.
He'd been racing internationals in Europe. And I heard about him, you know, because it was much harder to get organised in those days. And so I heard you had to have a manager to get you can't just go and enter, you know, you have to have a manager. And so, yeah, I made contact with Terry somehow, and then he helped me get a couple of, you know, a manager. Our manager's name was Bozabov, and didn't speak any English.
Bizarre.
Yeah, didn't speak any English, and but Terry did, because he'd been living there for 6 years doing it on a shoestring. You know, we're all shoestring guys and just making it work, but it was better than going to work. So we were loving it in a lot of ways. But I didn't have the guts to make that move. You know, it was different when I was had some work, let's say, but I was going to try and now just race for a living, you know, and so it changed. It changed, and then I only got, like, through correspondence again. It's like letters. You're waiting on letters, and you know, I'd try and contact Terry and, you know, say, hey, have you heard anything from Bozabov? And I think at one stage there I only had 2, maybe 3 starts for the following year, you know, which were, you know, you can't make much money out of that.
Yeah.
But I thought I'll get more, but there was nothing concrete, you know. So I had, you know, I think my mother instigated it. She goes, you know, what are you going to do with your life? And I went, well, I'm doing it. You know?
Yeah.
And she's rolling her eyes a bit, and she goes, so you really want to do this motorcycle thing? I go, yeah, I do. Anyway, so she said, well, you know, do it. Just do it. Then I go, well, I'm working on it, but I've only got a couple of starts, so I'm nervous. I'm not going to have enough money. And then, so the big turnaround was, she said, well, just get a return ticket, because that's kind of what you did in the old days, and you still do it to some extent now. But she goes, just buy a return ticket and just go and do it. And if it doesn't work, just come home. At least you did it, you know. And coming from a mother who had always been, don't even talk about bikes, to give me a blessing almost to do it, but giving me the confidence to say, look, you've got to do it, because you'll never be arrested if you don't. So just get out there and have a go, you know. And then if it's all bad, just come back, you know, and everything's good. And I just went, man, you just simplified my life so much, and that's it, I'm going to do it. And it was just a huge turnaround. So there you go, you know, from one end of the scale to the next, you know.
How old would you have been then?
Well, the first, you know, I'd been...
Because you went over there when you were young, like 20, right?
There's a lot of stuff kind of happened before that. So, you know, I started riding in 70 or something like that, and or 71 maybe, and then... you know, I remember the big deal when the Elsinores came out in 73, and I had a proper bike by then. I had a 125 Husky motocrosser, which was not really the greatest, most competitive bike or anything like that. And a lot of the times I could only get to, you know, I had no car, and parents didn't want to do anything, you know, didn't even talk about it, as I said. So, you know, my mates' parents or friends of friends might be going somewhere. So I was sort of, it depended on where I could get a lift to. I just wanted to race, you know. And so I did a lot of short circuit. And even though it didn't do me any harm, it's not really what I wanted to do. And it was a bit of a tuning game where people were running methanol and all that. And, you know, and I just had the slowest bike anyway, plus never could afford methanol or anything. So, you know, I get smoked down the straights, but I really learned to ride around the corners pretty good. And so I just, you know, I did that where I could. Every now and then I could get to a motocross. And, club days and things like that. Then I was sort of tossed between where do I go? Do I do a motocross or do I, do enduro? And I bought the first sort of new bike I bought was the Bull Taco 250 enduro bike.
Yeah.
And so, I did everything with that. I did some motocross, club motocross and, club enduro. They used to even have club trials and things like that. And so this is probably about maybe 75 or something. And I think I might have even won the club championships or something in 76 maybe. But I was starting to go pretty good. And a lot of enduro stuff. And I actually won a national enduro in the 250 class in Mittagong. So that was my first kind of, wow, I'm going okay in this. But then I'd get sort of dragged into something else, and then I decided, no, I want to do motocross. So I got a Suzuki 370. At the time I thought it was a great bike, but they were rated later as being a bit of a hard thing to ride.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was improving pretty quickly, and I was only a C grader, but I went to in January, which is an unusual time. I know I've seen this because I looked up some stuff and I saw something that was written in the paper about it, and I go, it's January, because 77 is a really tough year for me to remember. I do know there's so many things, and even then I'll probably get some stuff wrong because this just doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
So, but I saw that it was January, so they had a race at Amaroo Park that was an all C grade meeting, and I pretty much dominated that. So then the ACU or MA guys said, right, you're up to B grade. And so then I went to this, I went to a state round, which was a B and A and B grade to qualify for the Australian Championships, which was in South Australia. So anyway, my hero, I've got a pretty funny story about my hero, and he's a Kiwi, and he came over.
Telling this other thing.
Have I told you? Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
So so I had this hero. I was a pretty shy kid. I never talked to him. I just admired the shit out of him, and his number was 35. And Brian Martin. He was a Kiwi, came over, and he won some Australian motocross championships. But he rode Honda for a while, but he rode a Mako, and it's probably one of the reasons I sort of thought I loved Makos, So that was pretty funny. And then, my mother had talked me into doing upholstery and going into tech and everything, but the Mako dealer was in Gladesville, so I'd borrow my mum's car every now and then and go to tech, and I'd stop at the Mako just because they go in there and go, wow, that's what Brian Martin rides,
Yeah.
And then I saw his bike was number 35, and I saw it there. I go, wow, it's not like now where there's multiple bikes everywhere. It's like you probably only got one bike a year, or maybe Brian got two. But anyway, it was a big deal for me as a pretty young guy to see his bike there. And then the import at the time sort of said, oh, yeah, I know who you are. You're an up-and-coming kid. You're going pretty good, and I could help you get into this bike. And I was just thinking, wow, imagine owning Brian Martin's bike. So I don't know how that happened because I never remember having a dime sort of thing. So, but something happened. I don't know how it worked, but anyway, I ended up with his bike, and it was amazing, So this was still 77. So I started on Suzuki, and then pretty soon after I was on this Mako. So I went to the New South Wales Championships motocross to try and qualify to go to South Australia. That's how they did it in the day, and they only took, I think, in each class they took 5 from each state. It was sort of just the way they did it,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how they do it now. I'm not sure.
I think you just enter.
Yeah, and then you qualify. Yeah, well, then there's no such thing as transponders or anything like that. So it was just a race, and it was somewhere near Cessnock. I can't remember that. And anyway, I went out in the practice laps, and trying to get used to it. It was a bit of a wet meeting, and there was some big ruts and all this sort of stuff. And and Brian Martin now was riding for Yamaha, so he'd obviously got brought up by those guys. And so I came down to this big long rut section. It was in a soft area, and I saw Brian Martin stopped in it, and it was so, at the time I was like, wow, never said anything to this guy ever. So I rode up next to him and said, are you all right? And he looked at me and he pushed me over in the mud, I was like, what the hell? This guy's fruitcake, and he was still trying to start his bike. And so I got up and thought, well, stuff you. So I pushed him over, and I got my bike going and I took off. So, you know, the funny thing about that was, I ended up qualifying. It was a mud bath, and this is the last year they had points on motorbikes. So before they went to electronic ignition, points were a nightmare, absolute nightmare, and the chains were shit back then. You know, the biggest improvements is like electronic ignitions and O-ring chains and disc brakes. You know, especially the front. So anyway, I think it was 3 motos, and I did well in the first 2. I can't remember what I got, but I did well, you know. And then on the last lap, the chain came off and knocked the ignition cover off, and there was moisture everywhere, and the bike stopped, you know, because the points are in there. And anyway, I had 1 lap to go, but it was a mud bath. There was a lot of people DNFing and stuff like that. And so I was pretty dejected, but one of the officials came over and said, just when the flag comes out, push your bike across the line, you know. So I went, oh, okay. So I did that, and it gave me an extra few points, and I qualified 5th.
Oh, wow.
So then I went, wow, I can go to the Australian Championships, you know. But anyway, going back to Brian, you know, like I didn't see him through the meeting. I just thought he was a dickhead all of a sudden. The hero's the biggest dickhead who ever drew breath. So 35 years goes by, and then the Mako import at the time, Ross King, well, his wife was having a birthday party, and he was a great mate of mine. And he said, you want to come? And I said, yeah, sure, you know, that'd be good. And he goes, oh, that's cool. There's some bike guys coming. Warren Willing's coming, and Brian Martin's coming. I go, Brian Martin's coming? He's going, yeah, and he doesn't know the history, I guess. And I'm going, wow, this is going to be pretty interesting. I'm gonna have it out with this guy. So he lives in South Australia now. So anyway, he went over, and he was late to get there, and I got there a bit early and started drinking too much red wine or something, and I told heaps of people about this story. I'm going to meet this Brian Martin. I got to sort this shit out after 35 years, you know. Anyway, a bit into the evening, this guy taps me on the shoulder and goes, I heard you wanted to talk to me. And I go, absolutely, yeah, I do, you know. So I said, I'm going first. He goes, right, go for it. And, you know, I went through the story again, and I said, why the hell would you do that, you know? Like, why would you push a guy over who was trying to help you, you know? And he goes, oh, okay. And he goes, I'll give you my version. And I go, righto. So anyway, he goes, well, I knew you were a bit of an up-and-coming kid and going all right, so I thought I'll follow you for a couple of laps. And so he did that, you know, and I didn't even know what brake checking was, but he thought I brake checked him because Kiwis are much better mud riders than us, and I slowed down a lot to go through these ruts, you know, maybe having a good look at them. I can't remember any of that. Because
it was just practice, right?
It was just practice, you know, and then he was behind me, and he must have gone, oh, and he's braking hard or doing something, and then he clipped me, which I didn't know, and he fell off in the mud. So meanwhile, I'd done a whole lap, and he was frustrated because he was trying to get his bike started again because nothing started good back in those days. So then I came around, not knowing any of this, pulled up next to him and said, are you all right? And he said, he thought I said, serves you right. And so he just thought, you put me in the ground from, you know, brake checking me, serves you right. So he's going, I'm pushing this bloody dick over, you know. So anyway, that's funny. So we sorted all that out, and now we're really good friends, and it's pretty funny how things happen, you know.
How long ago was the party where you caught up?
That was probably about 8 or 9 years ago or something like that.
So you've been friends you're like enemies for 35 years and then mates for the last 10.
So I idolised the dude, and then 35 years he was a wanker, and then the last 8 years he's a real good bloke again, yeah.
Oh, God.
So anyway, that was 77. So I qualified, you know, I got 5th. And then that's when I first met Laurie Alderton. I don't know if you know the name, but he used to be one of the best, if not the best, motocrosser in Australia, and he's done a lot of things, you know, and he's a bit of a legend, and he's an older guy. He's now 80, 84 or 3 or something.
Wow.
Yeah, he's.
Where's he live? Like,
he lives down in like Parramatta area, Sydney,
yeah.
and there's many people know him from old school stuff. But you know, he went to America and raced motocross, and anyway, he was at the end of his sort of career when I came in, you know. But he kept riding. I mean, but he was pretty elite when I came in. You know, he was riding they used to have unlimited class and 500 class, which is a bit weird, but the same bikes. You know, yeah. So anyway, he had qualified in the unlimited class, and I can't remember if I had no car or whatever, but I always had trouble getting to events. You know, and so this guy, it's a bit like, you know, one of the top guys like Gibbs or someone coming up and talking to someone and saying, hey, you know, do you want to lift to the next race? You know, it's sort of pretty random. So he just said to me, how are you going to get to South Australia? And I said, I haven't got a clue. He goes, you can come with me if you want. So that was awesome. And, you know, to meet this guy, and just we never stopped talking the whole way to South Australia. And I can't remember if it was 1 month later or whatever, but it was not, you know, a long time later. And so I was still B grade, but pretty much unknown, you know, by any, you know, people who grabbed a program, for instance, you know. So I went down there, and they used to have a system where each state would get, I don't know, like a draw or something, you know, and New South Wales got let's say the last pick, you know. So if there was, you know, 6 states entering, and then you got, you know, New South Wales got, you know, 6th. Well, then if you qualified first in New South Wales, you got the 6th pick at the gate. Yeah. And then the second guy got the 12th. Anyway, I was the last qualifier.
So you got the last gate pick.
I got the last gate
state.
Pick. And so it was funny because it was pretty, you know, like now everybody studies the gate. Gates back then used to fall towards you, not away from you, you know. But anyway, it was at Cusa Park, which is a pretty good facility. I think it still exists, you know. So anyway, I was right over on the right-hand side, and when I got there, I went, oh, this looks like a pretty good place to start, you know. And I got a great start, you know. I came into the corner, you know, 4th or 5th or something, and pushed a little bit, and then jammed into 3rd. And then coming out of the corner was a guy called Ivan Miller and Mike Landman. You might know Mike Landman because he's had a bit to do with, you know, mechanicking and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, he was a factory Yamaha rider.
Like, he was a gunner.
Full factory, you know. There was a lot of factory bikes back then. Everything was, you know, whatever, titanium, magnesium, and it was amazing. But anyway, he was a hero of mine. I'd never talked to him in my life either. And those 2 guys went into the second corner banging bars, trying to give each other a hard time, and I just turned underneath them and I went, wow, I'm winning. It was just so classic. So half-hour motos, and I wasn't really ready for it, fit enough, all that stuff. But I led it for 20 minutes, and then I fell off, you know, just through being knackered. And so anyway, I think I finished, I fell off twice actually. I fell off trying to get back onto the track. I hit a tyre and fell off again. So, you know, I think I finished 5th or something like that. Maybe the second moto. I did the same thing in the second moto, and I can't remember. I just remember the first moto, how I ended up there. But anyway, I was leading the second moto. And,
wow.
So I was this kid. Laurie said it was so funny because as soon as I was in the lead, he said people were pulling their programs out and going, who the hell's this, you know?
What number were you running back then? Do you remember?
Yeah, no, I don't know if I can remember. No, I'm not sure. But anyway, the weirdest thing about it was, and it's even weird today, is the whole meeting was televised live by the ABC, which I didn't know. I just knew it was televised. I found out later from Anthony Gunter. He knew all about it. So, you know, huge cameras like, you know, you see indoors, and you know, it's all non-digital. It's all just massive stuff. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. These nationals are good, you know. Yeah. Anyway, so the funny story there was, you know, my parents didn't follow it. I didn't talk to them. That just upset them and stuff. But, you know, they knew he's probably riding that bloody motorbike somewhere. And anyway, so my sister was ironing some clothes and flicking through channels. Or you don't flick through back then. You walk forward and do it.
Yeah, on the telly.
And she sees this motocross on TV. And she goes, oh, I think this is what Geoff does, you know.
That is so funny.
It's so funny, you know. So then she's looking at it, and the guy is talking about me because I'm winning it, but he's talking about me like I'm the loosest kid he has ever seen, and like I'm going to kill myself, you know. And so he rings Mum and says, "You better turn the telly on, Jeff's on the telly." And so, of course, you know, she's obviously scared shitless, and she turns it on, and this guy's talking like, there's no one I've seen as wild as this kid. He's just loose, you know. So she only turns it on for 5 seconds, and then decides this is bad, what my son's doing, you know. But anyway, I went okay, didn't get injured, had a great time, just thought, man, I'm into motocross, this is good, you know. And so the following weekend was Australia versus New Zealand Motocross Challenge. I don't know who paid for it, fully sponsored by some Kiwis over there that got their shit together and made this thing happen. It was pretty cool. I think they did it a few times. They've probably even done it recently. I'm sort of a bit more out of touch on that now. But anyway, so I went down there with Laurie, and then this guy who was running the New Zealand event was at this Australian Championship, and he came up to me and said, "Wow, you're going good, and you know, do you want to come over to New Zealand?" And next weekend is, and I'm like, absolutely, that would be so good, you know. Anyway, so then he said, well, if you can get you know, I've talked to Mike Lamman already, never met him before in my life, but he said you can stay at his place, and on Wednesday you got to get the bikes to the airport, and then, you know, we're flying you over, and I was just going, wow, you know. So I said, Laurie, sorry, mate, you got to go back by yourself. And yeah, so it was kind of how things started, you know. And yeah, so, you know, as I said, piecing things together is with some years is tricky, you know, because there's very few photos ever taken back then too. So it's not like, oh yeah, and you know, they're not dated. So anyway, did that, but fell in. You know, I had a lot to do in New Zealand. I went to school there for a year, and sort of loved New Zealand in itself. But Mike Lamb and I became pretty good mates, you know, and then we went, man.
He's a great guy.
He's a great guy.
He is a really good guy.
Yeah, so we went, wow, this is just so cool. Let's just, I can't remember if we left bikes there, but we went back and raced their summer series, you know.
Yeah, right.
And anyway, yeah, we ended up getting a little unit, and another guy, Dave, and there was 3 of us decided we wanted to go and do motocross. So we got a you know, little Hillman bloody something. Yeah. You know, bought a car for $200, and we even hitchhiked to some races with bikes, which is just classic. And, you know, we knew a lot of guys would be coming past because we could only get a couple of the bikes out of the 3 sometimes, you know, to the meeting. So we just went, well, we'll just hitchhike, have a bike there, and there's all these bikes coming along, and there's guys with 3 bike trailers with only 2.
Downs and
So yeah, anyway, we got there in the end. Oh no, that's right, we couldn't get a lift, and we pulled the steering head out of this thing and put it in the back. But we all got there, you know. It was just the way you did things. It was a lot of fun. But anyway, we fell in love with that place, and yeah, from there, what happened? Oh yeah, so then Suzuki Australia decided I was worth sponsoring, and
what was the landscape, the moto manufacturer landscape like back then? Because I guess I know Mako and Bultaco, I know there was the major brands, but I guess I've never really had someone with your level of experience explain exactly what the dirt bike landscape looked like in the 70s. As far as manufacturers,
you know, the Japs had started to take over for sure. You know, it was the thing for me was it was the shit. They sold stacks of bikes. It was incredible. But you know, the Japs were taking over. There was no doubt about it. In fact, they pretty much had. You know, and in Australia, Mako, for instance, was
so they were a German company.
Yeah, they were German, West German. Yeah, so back then it was East and West, and East was communist, and so. Yeah, it was like Mako was big, but more so in enduro, you know. And but in the States, Mako was really big. You know, maybe not as big as the Jap, but it's a bigger market. But their motocross market was much bigger than enduro. But in Australia, it was all the Japs were into it, and really having a go, you know. And like there was Yamaha and Kawasaki and Suzuki full factory bikes, like. you just look at him as a kid just going, oh my God. And I got to know a lot more about him when I hung out with Mike Lamb, because he had full factory Yamaha, and the amount of parts you get, and also like not one part is the same as a production. Not like a
really,
once production frames or rule, whatever they call the thing, comes out now. I mean, people are putting different triple clamps and different things, but there was nothing the same. It was just so light. They gave Mike as a factory rider, I'm pretty sure I'm right here, and he had at least 4 or 5 frames, so they only wanted him to do so many motos and then change the frame because it's going to break, because it's thin, it's light. It was crazy. And all the wheels are magnesium. Everything was different. It was just amazing. So I just remember going, before we flew over to New Zealand, looking in his shed, just going, man, like I'd lucky to have a spare spark plug, and this guy had stacks of stuff.
And did that translated to speed back then? All the factory bikes and parts?
Yeah, it did. I don't know how much, but we went over and Mike took his factory bike to New Zealand.
Yeah.
And the New Zealand tracks were much rougher than our Australian tracks, much rougher, and the Mako was tough, man. I didn't have any problems, but pretty much every weekend Mike's bike would crack the frame, and start breaking here, there, and he had people trying to weld it up, and it was so light, it was so hard, and in the end he gave up. And White's Yamaha was a big dealer in Hamilton, and they said no, you just the new bike came out, the following year, and it was a bit better, or trick at the time or whatever, and they wanted him on that, so he rode that, and I think his results changed a bit. Like he didn't go as good as he did on the factory bike, but the thing was much tougher, even though the Euro bikes were considered more durable. But at the time the Japs weren't maybe that good durability. I know Honda was excellent, in comparison to some of the others, and then Yamaha were close behind, or got even better in the end, but they were the first guys to really get the quality control better, but yeah, it was a different world, man. It was crazy. And
there was like Husky was around.
Yeah, definitely.
Who else was around in that era?
Yeah, it was mainly earlier days than this, and these days more earlier days in motocross. Bull Taco was really strong with the Floods, they were so strong, but mostly, there was a few Makos, there was a few Bull Tacos. You hardly ever saw an Ossa like you did you did. People, they sold them, but mainstream, and depending on what you did, maybe if you went to club days more, then you would see more of the other stuff. But by then, I was racing national stuff and state stuff, so those guys were more of the supported guys and supported, in a general sense. So there would be more of the mainstream, Yamahas and, Williams and Gawley and Gunter and all those guys, So, Makos were not common. They were a bit more rare.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So compared to now, like how much did the tracks change in terms of roughness compared to like these days? Because I feel like even so Manji, when we did Manji the other day, you could see the way that the braking bumps would form up the big single off the start straight.
Yeah.
And you've just got these bumps, and I'm sitting there thinking like in 2-stroke days, those bumps probably didn't get there in the same way because you don't have like the drag of the engine braking. Like, have you noticed tracks change?
Yeah, for sure. Like as you get better suspension and more refined and more travel, to some extent, you get bigger bumps. So, but the suspension's also better, so it's just the same. In the end,
it works out the same.
You're just riding as hard as you possibly can for as long as you can, and you're climbing the walls to get out of holes. You're doing whatever it takes, and in a way, nothing changes. The holes might be bigger, but you can run into them more. So so you still try and get out of the way. You're still depending, but you climb the edges to get out of them where you have to, and where you think it's the best line. But I don't think ultimately it's the basic thing hasn't changed. You just ride into the holes as hard as you can and try and make it all work. It's more refined now, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We used to, we used to think we were serious, but it's not like you used to train every day. You couldn't afford it and different things like that. But everyone was to some extent in the same boat. I was pretty amateur, I guess, compared to a lot. The guys who had factory support had more pressure and they were more organised. I never had anyone helping me at all. Yeah. So I never really knew what I was doing too much, and I didn't train much. I used to go to some of the meetings and go, wow, these guys have just got their shit together. They got multiple people helping them. So it was a bit different that way for me, but I was just looking at that landscape of who was out there, and you just focus on what you're trying to do, and just sometimes that pumped you up. You go, I'm going to beat these bastards.
Yeah.
But basically, people say that is it harder now or easier? I go, I think it's the same. I think it's just the same. It's
just relative.
Yeah, it's like because the bikes didn't maybe handle as well, then when you crash, I think you don't crash as much maybe, but you crash big.
Nowadays.
Yeah. You still fall over, and most of the time you crash in a awkward corner or something like that. So that still happens, but sometimes when they let go and they're that wound up, things happen pretty big time. So yeah, and back then we used to not have we had jumps, plenty of jumps, I suppose, but none of them were really timing jumps, and then I went into, I can't remember exactly what year that I did the Mr. Motocross. I think it was like 80 or 81 or 82 or something. I get confused a bit, but I only did it once, and then I went into the final round of the series, and I was 5th. And I don't know if Gore was winning it or Gunter, but one of those two. And then Beetle Bailey was another guy, and I think Williams. And then Vince Tesoriero, the rat guy, he was the one made it all happen. And there was sort of recognition for the top 5, and I was really happy to be in there. And I wanted to finish, even though I was probably only going to do that one race. And I was riding it on an enduro bike that was changed a bit, but it didn't make much difference in Mako terms. They didn't do a lot of different. They had a heavy flywheel or something.
Oh yeah,
it wasn't huge differences. But anyway, we turned up at the final round at Amaru Park, and I had a pretty reasonable lead over 6th, and Leask was 6th, and I just wanted to finish in the top 5, And I said to my mate, whatever happens, I just have to finish every moto, And they were sprints back then. You'd do, I don't know how many laps, but not that many, and you'd come back to the start line. You actually would park on the start line. Yeah. It was weird. Anyway, when we got to the track, they had quad jumps, so we'd never seen anything like it. I don't know if Gunter or Gall had seen anything like it. I wouldn't be surprised if Gawley had, someone had given him the clue and said, hey, you're going to get these jumps that are going to be looking like this, but I'd never seen anything like it. We just didn't know how to ride them, so it caused havoc.
And so what would the scale and sizing and distance
everything was wrong. They had no experience, so the size, they were probably only as big as, as tall as we are, and they were sort of even. There was just 4 jumps in a row, but there wasn't a lot of gap between. You couldn't do 4. No one ever did 4. There wasn't enough speed. And Christ, we didn't know how to do them. So that would have been chaotic. So, we were just talking like, how do you do these things, And someone goes, I think you can do 2 and then 2, It was so nuts.
That's crazy.
It was so bad, really. Anyway, we were whinging our head off saying, get the bulldozer out. This is ridiculous, Anyway, I splattered myself. So, we didn't have the sensation of how to do it, So front wheel was high. You had to it was all about timing, and you just didn't have that timing. So the thing that I remember that was funny, and I know now, is if you made a mistake doing the first 2 and you overjumped them a bit so you didn't have the right approach for the next 2, you just abort, right? You just go, nah, and roll the next 2. But we didn't have that mentality. It was just like, shit, you've got to clear the next 2, so you just gas it and everything would be wrong, and that's exactly what happened to me. So I splattered myself and knocked myself out. But my mate, who I said I have to finish, he picked me up. This is Chris Cater, and he picked me up. He was an official too. Somehow he squeezed into there, and he just goes, go, and like I was in Fairyland. I don't even remember any of this. I was told this, So I had enough program stuff going in there to know it goes that way and just do it,
Yeah.
Anyway, apparently I rode pretty well still, but I have no recollection of it. And I went back to, like the pits, which was on the side. You were supposed to go to the start line because I didn't know what I was doing. And anyway, Kate is going, go to the start line. I don't even know where I am. I'm going, what, why, what start line? And it's kind of one of the areas where I've met my future wife. She was there, and she used to be a nurse, and she comes up and she's arguing with Cater, going, no, he's not right, he can't ride, and I'm kind of getting scared. I'm going, what's going on? These people are all yelling and everything. Anyway, Chris Cater's massive, so she wasn't going to win any push-shove thing. Yeah. And so she went and got the medics, and they came over and just checked me out and go, oh, no, you're not going on anymore. That's it, sort of thing. So that was that. But, I think I dropped back to 6 maybe or something like that. But, and I, even if it was 80 or 81 or 82, I don't know how I did it because I was overseas a lot too. So maybe I just left straight after there. Or I don't know. It's hard to piece some of that stuff together, it really is. But anyway, that's where I met Jen, one time. And that if it was 80, then didn't really get together until the end of 81 or something like that, So, but I was going back to, I was like, once I got my foot in the door, I went and worked at the Mako factory for 7 months. That was a funny story too, in a way, because...
How did that come about?
Well, I was just desperate to... I could beat everyone in Australia in enduros.
Yeah, so but actually, before we get into that, so you've always been torn between moto and enduro. Obviously, you lean more to enduro nowadays, like if we look back at like the bulk of your career.
Yeah.
But at the start... there was like it seemed like you were quite torn between those two. So I guess like explain your headspace around those two disciplines.
Well, motocross was my passion, really, So I love motocross. And as I said, 77 was the craziest year, And then when I did well at the Aussie Champs, then I got a Suzuki sponsorship, and I thought, wow, this is amazing, I mean, I was sponsored by Mako, but it was a much bigger deal, Anyway, I was into motocross, and I was totally into motocross, really. Like if you said the percentage, it was much higher than enduro. But I understood enduro, and I'd seen on any Sunday, and that was one of the things, I saw Malcolm Smith racing the 6 day, and I went, wow, that's really cool. And it just was in the back of my brain, And I met these guys. I think I must have been injured or something because I was at Dargle at one of the top motocross tracks we used to have in the day. Yeah. And I wasn't riding, so I must. The only reason would have been, something was wrong. I was a bit injured or something. And I saw these two guys with headlights riding, and I'm going to go and see what their story is. And it was Alan Cunningham and Rob Haskins, So they were guys going over to do the 6 day in Czechoslovakia. Anyway, I said, what's the story? And they go, we're just trying to get, do a bit of motocross, bit of speed training or whatever. We're going to the 6 day. I go, I've heard of the 6 day. Yeah, it's cool, blah, blah. Anyway, and I had no money, basically. And anyway, they said, we're going over soon. It was in weeks or less. And they said, why don't you come? And then I said, I got no money. And they go, you can just come with us. Because I was, just to go and watch. I must have had something wrong, like, don't know, sprained something or whatever. And they said, we got a hire car and we got a rent a room. You can just use that and everything. And it was just the most amazing experience. And so I could get over there for $2 bob because parents,
Yeah, with the
cheap flights.
Yeah. And then you stayed with those guys.
Yeah, so my mother, who liked me exploring the world, she hated me doing anything with bikes, but exploring the world was, all right, So organised a ticket, and I went over there, and it was just Hogan's Heroes stuff. It was so cool. It was full communist, sliding mirrors under the vans and great huge barriers and no man's land between where they poison everything. All the vegetation's gone, and just attitude, and it was so weird. It was a bit scary, but anyway, I got there and just went, wow, how amazing is this? And Geoff Ballard, the guy I used to, started the 80B mag and all that sort of stuff. I told him I was going. He goes, oh, wow, that's cool. And he goes, I'll give you a letter that's an intro for the a press pass, And I go, oh, okay. I didn't think that much of it. But he gave me this letter. And then I'm over there and I'm looking at just a different world, like V8 air-cooled rear-engine Tatras, and just no colour. There's no colour in the whole world. They had supermarkets, but everything was in brown paper bags. It was just unbelievably different. And even though I'd travelled a lot, I'd never seen anything like it. But the passion and the amount of people that would go to everything, and watch everywhere you went on a trail or whatever, there was people. So I was just there to learn, or just an experience, and I just blew me away. And then I saw the thing, Press Centre, and I went, wow, I've got that letter. So I went over and gave them the letter, and they just welcomed me so much. And they gave me all this, propaganda and paraphernalia and all this stuff and all these banners and just maps and everything of where to find all the vantage points. And they gave me a bike. They gave me a 250 Jawa, which was like a road, like a bit of a road, tiny bit trail. Had the mudguard on the right down near the tyre on the front. And they gave me a helmet with no peak on it, and of course you can't ride, so everyone was laughing about that, and someone had a spare peak, so I duct taped that on. And it was just the greatest time, and I just felt so free, and I just went, man, I've got all the maps, I'm going to go and find all these, and I'm going to watch this event like nothing else, I don't even think I had a camera, but, I was press pass, so it was pretty hilarious. Anyway, went out and... just explored the thing, but I just fell in love with the thing. And as a nation, we were not good at 6 days back then. We were pretty bloody terrible.
Really?
But I just, the best guy was an Italian guy at that event, and they were flying, compared to our guys. And I looked at it and I go, man, I could do this. I don't know. I just went, this is it, man. This is what I want to do. And so... And
what was it just the riding, or was it everything that surrounded it? Was it like the adventure? Was it the unknown?
Yeah, it was like everything in this country, of course, because it's so accepted over there. And everything that we had ever seen was like so not accepted, If you say to the general public to ride a bike, they go, oh, yeah, righto, whatever. You're one of the noisy guys, or, in this country, everybody came to the opening ceremony. Everybody just walked up every trail to look at it. Everybody smiled at it when they saw you, and it was just bigger than Ben-Hur. It was just the opening ceremony and jets flying over. It's going, wow, this is just the next level. I don't know. I just went, I like it, and the background of on any Sunday and seeing Malcolm do it, and I go, yeah, I'm into this shit. This is what I want to do. So I came back, and I was still Suzuki sponsored, and I said, oh, I think I want to go enduro riding. And they're going, oh, whatever, like you're a motocrosser, that's what you set up for, Anyway, and I sort of lost, I still wanted to deep down be an enduro guy, and but I kept going, and then that must have been, that would have been like September or October that I came back from there, and then at some stage, I think early in the year or something, I went and did the Pacific Motocross Championships for him in Tahiti, which is pretty bloody random.
Yeah, that's super random.
Yeah, and it's crazy, that place, because there's no flat ground, but we had to go to the other side of the island. And it's when I first met... actually, it's not... No, it's not when I first... Oh, yeah, it is. It's when I first met Brock Glover. So, he was American 125 champ. And I'd never met John DeSoto. He was a Hawaiian. They called him the Flying Hawaiian, and he was one of the top pro guys from America. And anyway, I did well, and I won the 500 class, and Glover won the 125, and DeSoto won the 250. And But anyway, it was funny because I talked to Brock Glover when he came over here to do the the classic dirt or something like that.
Yeah,
and I thought, I wonder if he still remembers me, because I in 79 after the 6th day. So this is the year I worked at the Mako factory in Germany, in West Germany, and I'd met an American enthusiast, just an enthusiast. He didn't ride bikes and don't think much at all, but he had a little accessory shop called Cycle Nuts and Bolts in Atlanta, Georgia. And he was just a friendly guy, and I just met him at the hotel or something, and he said, are you going to come to the 6th day next year? And I go, oh yeah, man, I ride the 6th day every year. That's everything, And he goes, well, when you're coming home next year, why don't you come via the States and come and hang out for a couple of weeks? And I go, yeah, that could be good. And I did it. And so I landed in Atlanta, and I went there, and I knew Barry Higgins, which was one of the sort of famous American racers in earlier days, but Mako dude,
Yeah.
And anyway, one thing led to another, and it was pretty funny because I arrived on like a Wednesday or a Thursday, and then this guy, Tommy, said, oh, Barry Higgins' shop's only not far from me. I go, are you kidding? He goes, no. He goes, let's call him. So we called him, and he goes, what are you doing here and all this stuff? I go, oh, yeah, I'm just here for a few weeks. And he goes, oh, man, that's cool. We have to get together. And he hung up, and then he rang back a minute later, and he goes, hey, the Trans AMA motocross is on in Road, Atlanta, which is a road racetrack in the middle of it. They got a, circuit.
Really?
Yeah. And he goes, you should ride it. And like I just finished the 6th day, so I was over riding anyway. And I went, oh, yeah, no, I'm right. And he goes, no, you got to do it. You got to do it. And so he went, I didn't have a bike or anything, And then, and this is like the biggest motocross in America, the Trans AMA. And so anyway, he rings the organisers, and I think they have the shits with him because, mate, it's like, what day it is, and, well, something like that. Anyway, in the early days, the Euros used to come over and, beat the Yanks pretty easy, But it had turned around, and so a lot of the Yanks, all of the, Adolf Wheel and DeCosta and Willie Bauer and all these dudes who pretty much showed the Americans how to do it in the earlier days, had all kind of left, and it had changed. There was different people, and Mal Herb was maybe 500 champion that year, or he was one of the best, but he was the only guy that year doing it. All the rest didn't bother coming. I think they couldn't make money, or they weren't winning enough, or something. Anyway, there was only one, right? And he fell off through the week practicing and broke his collarbone. So they'd sort of said, hey, it's a international race, and then they didn't have any internationals. So Barry found that out and rang him back, hassled him, and said, if you want to have this a true international, you got to have at least someone from out of the state. So I ended up getting in there, and it was pretty embarrassing, to be honest. Like, I had a big crash in practice, and then in the first moto, the guy got all excited because I was going to ride his bike, so he put a new piston ring in it, but forgot to tighten the cylinder properly, and then the cylinder started coming loose and sucking air, and everything was going wrong. But the second moto, they had a really, weird straight with a jump on it, and I didn't do it right, and I jumped on the back of Brock Glover. And
I didn't do it right.
and I had a big crash and put him down too, and he was one of the, like the golden
boy, yeah.
Yeah, so... And I didn't actually know. I knew I hit him, and I just went endoed and didn't know what happened. I was facing the wrong way, so I couldn't see that he was over there, and but I soon found out when I took off, and then all these pitboard guys were just giving me shit, and I was going, oh Jesus, So anyway, it wasn't the best meeting ever, but then I went, wow, I'm enjoying it over here, and I went and did a big enduro, and I'd been, I was into the American Dirt Bike mag, and, we used to idolise all these different people and enduro riders and 6-day guys from America, and so there was a big enduro called the Odenville 100, and decided to go in that and borrowed a different bike, and ended up winning it outright. So that was my first decent go, and I was like, wow. And then Barry, who owned the Mako shop, was wrapped, so he said, man, you're staying because we're going to do the what they call it, the Winter AMA Series, which was all Florida basis sand series.
Yeah.
And, when you come from Australia, pretty much overseas, everyone thinks you're a great sand rider, but where I grew up, never even ridden sand. So I was a bit of a basket case at first, but did the whole series and learned how to ride sand and was pretty reasonable in the end and just loved it, But I had no money and I was only there for 2 weeks, and all my tickets I used to get through, staff were changeable, easily changeable.
Yeah.
So I just changed it, but I had no money, so I talked to the guy. I said, "Oh man, I have to get a job. I have to do something, And I became an upholsterer by trade. So, forced from my mother, you've got to have a proper job. You can't do this. So I just kept doing stuff. Did it in an unusual way. Did through block release, they call it, and I was helped a lot. But I ended up with it, still managing to race all the time, and. So it was funny, So I talked to this guy, and they go, "We know an upholsterer, Ricky Spinks," which is pretty funny because there's a girl works at
that's actually
MX.
my ex-girlfriend.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, so how random is that? Because,
that is very random.
Yeah, Ricky was obviously a bloke, and it was RICKY, and then when I met that girl at work there, she goes, "I'm Ricky Spinks." I go, "What the hell?"
Ricky Spinks. Yeah.
So he was the upholsterer. So I worked for him. He paid me under the table for 5 months. I stayed, and had a great time. So then I went back from there to Europe, and kept doing the things and loved it. Surviving just. Terry was a saviour for me. He could speak French, and he worked. Pretty much got all the correspondence because there was no mobile phones and everything. It was all about letters and getting more motocross starts. And by then, Chris Maindonald, who lives on the Gold Coast here, he's a Kiwi, and he was one of the guys I hung out with. And Mike Landman and Gary Ben, we used to see him a fair bit. He wasn't racing, but we saw him around. I can't remember.
Was he mechanicking back then for people?
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
because he was Lacey's mechanic at one point, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and Dax and everyone.
Yeah.
But Pelly Gronquist was he was over there and he was doing the international. We called him the international. So most of them were in France. That's where the money was to be made.
Yeah.
But you could do the GPs, and the GPs you could make money, but it was really risky. Like you go all the way to Sweden or whatever, and then if you didn't qualify, then good on you, mate. You came all that way. But I don't know if anyone's ever explained to you how professional and how it used to be in Europe with motocross, but it was absolutely unbelievable. It was so good. Yeah. So you had to have a manager. He took about 5% of your money, and so you can't enter races, or you couldn't enter races without having a manager do it for you, right?
Yeah.
And so his job was to go to these people running these races, and there was multiples on each weekend, often throughout in France, and sometimes we went to Spain and places like that. But a lot of them were the most money was to be made in France. Anyway, so you go to the manager, you lie a bit, try and sell yourself. Oh man, I'm a good motocrosser, But it was easy for the Aussies because they didn't get many Aussies, There was stacks of the Swedes and the Finns and the Italians and everybody else. But Aussies, and I guess Kiwis, but it was easy, easier. So they had a thing called minimum guarantee. So only the Carl Quists and the, Jean-Jacques Brunos and the guys who were world champ contenders got start money. And that was a different thing. But just about everyone else was on minimum guarantee. So they used to have 3 races, and to simplify, I can't remember, it was all in French francs back then, but so 3 motos, let's say you win $100 for coming, 6th in each moto. So let's just say back then, so you go, you'd sell yourself, and this guy would go, oh, okay, and he'd probably know your line a bit and read between the lines or whatever. Yeah. And so he'd go, I think you should be good for like 6th place, So the 6th place on the 3 prize money scales for each race, let's say 6th was $100. So if your minimum guarantee would be $300. So if you went out in the first moto and got a fifth, and you made 115 or something, and then you went out in the next one and you got another 100, you got sixth or something like that, so you got 215, and then you bombed out in the last race, you get $300. You can't make less than $300.
And how much was $300 back then?
Oh, no, this hypothetical anyway. Look, I guess it wasn't a lot. Yeah, so, it was all in French francs, so it's a bit confusing. But, it depended on the race meeting, but let's say they had me down for like sixth or something. So, with sixth, you can survive, you can eat, you can buy new tyres, you can do whatever you're doing, and, living in your van. Everyone lived in vans. And cruise around. You mightn't have your next race for 2 weeks, so, it was fine. It was fine. You weren't making money, but you were fine. You're having a great time. So the beauty of it was that you could go out as soon as you had to do. If you broke down, in unofficial practice, you were a bit out. But if practice on the day was official, and if you broke down, you blew up your engine in practice, they go, here's $300.
Start money. Yeah.
Here's $300. Not start money, minimum guarantee. Big difference. So here's your $300. But we're not going to give you a hard time over it. But if you keep not getting it, then it's going to go down. You know? And so, they look after you. You can break down, not even race the event, and you get $300. And you can go to the next one, do the same, and then they go, it's harder for you to sell them to the next one. They go, how'd he go? Oh, yeah, broke down. Whereas if, they thought, you're good for sixth, but you got a fourth, a third, and another third or something, you go, you got third or fourth overall or something, and you might have made $500 or $600. So there's your $600. You couldn't make any less than your minimum guarantee. But, you got looked after. So, it's like, you've travelled a long way, or you've done whatever, or you're a pro motocross, so, we know you can have bad days, and they just looked after you, and it was unreal. And Mike Lamb and I used to, we just did it because it was a survival for us. And we went to something, I can't remember if it was a mud bath, but I think we only did one moto, and then that was it. And they wouldn't pay us the minimum guarantee. You go to a little caravan at the end, and they give you an envelope, and I said to Mike, how much money did you get? And he goes, whatever it was. I go, that's not right. And I said, I got dudded too, So then we were banging on the door. We were just going, minimum guarantee, And that guy came out and went, oh, fuck, there you go. Here's your money. And but it was good. It was a really good system. And if you did well, you got rewarded with a higher minimum guarantee, and because you're a better rider, Yeah. So it was a very good system. But saying that, it was still, it was hard sort of in some ways. I wanted to do World Enduro, and that was just spend, I was supported by the factory, but, only with only parts and, bikes and parts, and then I could make money pretty easy in motocross. But, unless I started dominating the World Enduro Championship, they weren't going to put me on a retainer. My teammate was a world champ guy, Italian guy, Andrini. So, he was in a different league at that time, and I could beat him here and there, but, consistently I wasn't there. So, it was a great experience. But then, through Terry, it was really funny because I'd never actually met Terry, and, I was trying to pick his brain, how does it work in France? And, and I was so nervous about, my mother sort of said, do it. And I was going, I really want it to work, and just stay there. I just wanted to be able to survive, Anyway, no mobiles or anything like that. And so I left the Mako factory in Germany, drove all the way over, and I was so nervous I was going to the wrong place because it was Domat-sur-la-Luce in France, and there's Domat-sur-la-Luze or something down south. And I only realised half this when I got near it, and I went, I haven't even got enough money to get. If it's this other one,
the wrong place,
if it's the wrong place. And I came into town, and it's a bit like the Tour de France, they get excited in that town and they paint on the roads and go and motocross this way, big arrows and motocross. And I'm going, wow, it's so different over here. Anyway, I got there early. I got there on a Friday or something. in the afternoon, and I met a couple of Irish guys, because when you're in, when I was working in the Mako factory and all that, hardly anyone ever spoke English, and that made it a bit tougher, And so it was cool. I met some Irish guys, and that was pretty cool. And then the next thing, it was night, and I was making dinner or something, and this guy knocks on had a combi, and it was Terry. I didn't even know what he looked like, because how do you know? It's not like you're on Facebook,
Yeah.
And anyway, so this guy's knocking on my door. I go, oh, yeah, what's this about? And he goes, oh, g'day, I'm Terry Gunter. I go, oh, wow, that's so cool. Like, fancy you being. I said, are you riding at this race? He goes, yeah, I'm racing here too. And then, to make it better, he goes, here's another, 2 starts from Bosabov. And, it was just like, oh, my God, this is the best thing ever. Like, more starts. So I was just going, oh, how good's this? So anyway, I had a great meeting, and I did much better than my minimum guarantee. So I was on top of the world. And then Terry, I said, what are you doing from here? Because we were riding the same race again in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, there's multiple races in Europe. And I said, hey, where are you riding? And he goes, yeah, same as you. I go, oh, that's cool. Can I just hang out with you? And he goes, oh, yeah. He says, I'm going down south. And I ride in this stunt show. And I go, what? He goes, yeah, riding this stunt show. And I go, oh, before I'd said I wanted to go with him, I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm going to this stunt show. And I said, what are you doing? He goes, oh, jump through fire and jump cars and stuff like that. I'm going, oh, man, that's crazy. And I said, can I come and hang out? And he goes, oh, yeah, I suppose. Anyway, I got to this beautiful little town called Lagupi, which is in the south, where a couple of rivers come together, and it's amazing. And just hung out, and it's like a commune. This stunt show is so classic. Jacques, the guy who runs it, he didn't speak much English, but his German wife did, and she spoke a bit, but it was just amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And so I was just hanging out, and then anyway, I went to the show, and Terry was bullshitting. He never jumped the cars, but he jumped through the fire and everything, and so somehow he must have talked me into saying, hey, you can make $100 or whatever it was. It wasn't much money, but you didn't do it. You didn't use any tyres,
Yeah.
You rode grassy paddocks,
Yeah.
And they had this truck that used to bring, the French call them trampoline, but it's a jump,
Yeah.
And you'd set up the jump. It was all community stuff. You'd have turns in making, dinner, and you'd set up this, you wash the bikes and all that, and you could live with them and eat with them all week. It was amazing. It was just amazing.
And what, did it travel around?
Yeah. It was pretty basic show, but they would go to these small towns. I mean, now when you see them doing, doubles and backflips and everything, it's just like probably laughable. But at the time, the little towns they went to, they didn't see anything like that. So I thought it was fantastic. And it was a show. So they would put the spectators, if they got 1,000 spectators, they were really happy. And they'd put them on the side so that you can't line up. It's all an illusion and stuff,
Yeah.
I mean, we jumped the cars. I jumped the cars. Terry never wanted to jump the cars. And I just looked at it and went, man, I bottom out harder than that every lap on the motocross. I'm going to do this. And they put girls after the cars. And so you hit the jump, but the crowd can't see it because they're not on the end. So they're only on the side. So they can't see that you hit it on a slight angle. So if you come up short, you don't land on the girls and kill them, you land beside them.
Yeah.
But the spectators can't tell, and they go, whoa, sacre bleu, And anyway, it was awesome. I just loved it. In between, it was like a base. You could get stuff there, and there was all these girls. They had a section called ballet, and they had all these girls. So it was cool. There was all these girls around, and it was a great time, I was just loving life, and had a base and just doing everything I wanted to do, it was amazing. So that didn't really change for years. I did it for 3 years or whatever, and I think the next year was when Jen was on board, and then her stepdaughter Kim came in, and she was coming over there. So I went from having a combi, I bought the combi in 79 when I was, I slept in the car park of the Mako factory for 7 months in my combi and just made it happen, Loved it, but it was a bit tough there because, I didn't know anyone, and no one in the factory really wanted to speak any English. So, didn't have anything. I didn't have any radio or anything that would talk, Eventually somebody told me about Radio Luxembourg, and you could find that, and then it was English, and I, had a little bit of something. But, I was focused on...
That must have been a bizarre time.
It
to
sort
live
of was.
by yourself in the back of a van at the Mako factory in Germany, and no one spoke English, and you couldn't speak German. It
was wild. It really was. It was... In some ways, it was easy because I was doing what I wanted to do,
What work were you doing in the factory?
Oh, man. It was the weirdest thing ever happened in a way, because it was a big misunderstanding. And I understand it more now than I did at the time, because I was only a teenager, And so Ross King was a Mako importer, and something went wrong. And I just said, well, I can't afford to be over there without work, And so somehow we thought I was going to get work at the Mako factory. So I took off and flew to Stuttgart or whatever, and then this little town of Pfaffingen, and got a train there, and then walked from the train station to this little factory, and I met the secretary, and she spoke a bit of English. And anyway, I said, I'm here for the job. I'm Geoff Ballard. I'm here, Ross King's the importer, and she was all confused, and she goes, no, there's no job. What do you mean? I go, no, there's a job. Like, there's got to be a job. I've got no money. I mean, I had some money, but I had to buy a van. I think I probably had $2,000. And she goes, no, that's not right. And I go, oh yeah, it's got to be. And I said, can you just please check again? So Hans Gracine or something, he was one of the other managers of the factory, and he came over and he just go, no, and I go, no, you got it. I was just staying in the local pub. And I came back the next day, and I said, yeah, here I am, I'm back, if you talk, because it was all telex stuff back then, you didn't really ring, it was different time zones, and way before fax machines or anything else, so you did telex, and they sent him a telex, and anyway, it wasn't working, and I go, yeah, if you sort it out, and they go, no, there's no job. And I go, it's got to be a job. And they must have gone, damn, this kid's come all the way from Australia thinking he's got a job. So I was pretty upset, but I went back to the pub, stayed the night, thinking they've got to sort it out. I came back the next day, and they go, yeah. And I went, yeah, see, I told you, I knew there was a job, But I didn't figure it out. And, to be honest, I didn't really like the Germans. They were not friendly. It's not like in Australia where you walk down the footpath and the guy looks you in the eye. Yeah. And you just give them a nod. Yeah. I look at them and they just stare at you like, what are you doing? And it was weird. So I felt pretty uncomfortable.
Vibe in Germany. We're in Germany driving through, and I was just like, I just don't know about this place.
It's not like that too much now compared to what it was.
If it was even worse, then that would have been heavy.
Yeah, so I didn't like them, but now all these years later, that was just how it was, and it was older generation, a lot more do. It's more like home, and the supermarkets are more like home, and it was all just different, But it was just, it was weird for me to sort of adapt, and just block it out and just go, oh well, no one's going to talk to you. And I had some pretty funny experiences because they put me in the race section, which was nice. So I just helped out and cleaned bikes and filters and swapped suspension or did whatever. And then at first they wouldn't let me ride the test bikes, but then after a while they realised he's fine, and so I just put hours on bikes and stuff like that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I didn't really know what I was going to get, and I didn't. To be honest, I probably didn't care that much, but I was hoping it might be a job, something like that. But it was all under the table pay. Of course, you can't just front up in Germany and say, I wanted, there was no, I didn't have any permits. So that's why I realised later that they were actually really nice. They did a lot for me. And then there was only one other young guy whose name was Betzelbacher, and his old man was a famous motocross racer, and he was the last guy to win they didn't call it a world championship in the early days. It was the European Championship. So he was famous because he won the European Championship, which was sort of the world championship because no one really was doing it. Anyway, he was a pretty young guy, and he was the same age as me, more or less, and he was trying to develop the 125 Mako, which was a pretty bad bike. But he spoke a bit of English, and I kept saying, I can't afford to live in the pub. I've got to get a van. And I had this dream about this. I'd been over, the 6 days earlier and seen some of these old, Merc vans. We didn't have really high aces and stuff at that stage, but it was like an earlier high ace,
Yeah.
And I just went, oh, wow, a van, and you have your bike in there next to you and you sleep there and all this shit that I was thinking was the go,
Yeah.
So anyway, that was my dream, but I needed to too. I couldn't afford to just keep staying in the pub, So I kept saying, can you help me? Can you help me? I want to find a car, and because I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. And he kept sort of going, oh yeah, I talked to my dad and blah blah. And anyway, I got to the point where I was desperate, and I knew that he only lived like 100 meters from the factory. It was crazy. So I went up there one night, knocked on the door, and the kid answered the door, and I said, man, I'm here, I'm bleeding, you got to help me, And he left me at the door, went back, talked to his old man. And then his old man came back. He's obviously knew him a bit. And he just said, tomorrow, we'll look tomorrow or something. Anyway, and then he found this Combi, and he was trying to tell me about a Combi. And I was just like, no, not a Combi. You can't put a motorbike in a Combi. The engine's in the back. And it was stuffing my dream. I was going, no. He's going, no, it's good. It's a good car, and it's like, oh shit, where do I put the motorbike? And so he had a guy who was into metal and fabricating, and took me around there. So we bought it, took me around there, and it was where we made the bike rack on the back.
I was literally gonna joke and interject before and be like, and that's how the Ballards bike rack was born. And I was like, no, I won't fucking ruin the story, but that's literally what happened.
Sort of in the way it is, and we got
oh my god,
and we got photos of that, and it was actually the most amazing setup for me, because I took the front wheel off the bike, which gave it a bit more security, and when I crossed borders and stuff, I was doing stuff, And when I cross borders, you're supposed to have everything organised in a carnet or something if you cross border, because they don't want you to sell a bike and all that sort of stuff. And back when we used to ride the fire trails in the mountains, every now and then you'd find a number plate on the falling off some guy's DT or something, and we just go, cool, number plate. Anyway, so I took a number plate with me to Europe, and we used to do it a lot in the early days of 6 days. And back then, dealers could, they had the rego papers, and they put it in a typewriter and tick away, and then you were supposed to take it to the RTA or whatever they called it, and you get a stamp, But Germans didn't know that, so we just typed up our own rego, and you didn't present it in front of everybody because it wasn't the thing to do, but it was your standby, So the bike was on the back. The guy'd come to the window, you give him your passport, and you just look in and go, camping, whatever. Yeah, see you later. And you'd look in the rear vision mirror as you're going away, or the side mirror, and you could see the guy looking back, damn, there's a motorbike on the back of there. I should have checked that, So it was so good that it was unreal. I just loved that Combi, and it really wasn't until years later when Jen came over with Kim, and I went, well, we can't all live in a Combi. And so I bought a Mercedes 508, which is a bit more like a box van sort of thing,
Yeah.
And so had a few more mouths to feed.
How did you and Kim stay in contact? Were you like writing letters to each other and stuff like that?
Jen's my wife, and Kim's a stepdaughter. Yeah, so maybe a little bit, maybe. But really, it was as soon as I was going out with her, that was it. We're going to Europe. So there wasn't a lot. There was. I knew her, but we weren't really together until I guess just before the season. I go, let's go, I'm doing it, and she's going, oh, what's Kim going to do for school? And I'm going, I don't know. Correspondence. So we did correspondence, and she got all that sorted out, and it was great, and it was a great experience for her. So it was a little bit nerve-wracking for me because I'd never had a girlfriend and had a daughter and mouth to feed, and man, I was always scraping it, so I was like, wow. And the stunt show was awesome because Jen used to go with Jacques. He had this crazy old 350 Kawasaki with a ladder welded to it. It was funny. It was all steel, and she used to they had 3 girls go on this ladder, and Jen used to go to the top and go upside down. Looked quite cool, And then Kim learnt. We used to live in a railway yard. No one ever from the railway department said, "What are you doing?" It was just so casual over there in this little Lagoopy town. And we taught Kim a few things, and you ride what they call side saddles. So you put your left foot on the right foot peg and you hold the handlebars, but you're on the right side of the bike, and then you can put a leg out. And when a whole bunch of girls do it, it looks kind of good, Yeah. So that was a bit more basic for her. Jen was doing something a bit more tricky, and I was jumping through huge fires. Like the first time I went through it, like Terry used to do it, and there was never any practice. It was always Mickey Mouse, there was never anything. And Jacques was a character, and he used to. It was all illusion, so he would, something would be happening over there. So then he would, get ready to light it. And I guess they used diesel and petrol or something. I don't really know. But so we were getting ready, and there was 2 jumps, and Terry was there. And he'd done it before. And the Makos used to, flood them to start them. And I was wiping crankcases. I was paranoid that the thing was going to catch on fire. Anyway, so I just said, you just tell me when to go. And then they lit the fire, and it was so massive. So I just went, holy shit, and then I looked at him expecting him to say, yeah, wait, it's too crazy now. And then he just goes, go. I'll go, oh my God. So we just took off and jumped through there, and it was really nothing. It was just this, hot flash,
Yeah.
But at the time, it was such a relief to get through that. And I go, man, this whole thing is just like fun. Everything's fun. So we get to hang out through the week. It's a base, eat together, do all this stuff. It was fun times, Europe was great, but it ended, of course, when Mako went bust,
So that was basically the ticket home was Mako going under.
Yeah, well, so Jen loved Europe, and
how long were you there for together all up?
I was there 4 years. Jen was there, I think, 2 years. Yeah.
Did you just learn much French in that time?
She learned more than me, but before that, I had a girlfriend before Jen who was studying law in Paris, and of course she spoke French pretty well. So when someone would stick their head in the door and talk to me, as the driver or something, I just lean back, hey, mate, just talk to her. Like, seriously, I don't want to be embarrassed here. So, so I got through with the basics, Same with German. German was a bit easier for me, and I got by, And some of that was pretty funny too, because for ages I got a little bit better all the time at the factory, and just got to know people, even though they weren't, super friendly. Just the system got better, and I knew a few things. And I remember saying, I used to say to people, können Sie mir helfen bitte? Thinking I was saying, can you help me please? And I said it forever. And then one day, said it to this guy, and he goes, why do you want me to have you? I go, what? He says, it's not können Sie mir helfen bitte, it's können Sie mir helfen bitte. And I go, no. For ages I've been saying, can you have me please? So, but we got by, it was fine, basics. It's just basics, if you had some drama with a car and you were trying to explain something wrong, engineering,
out the window.
Just hope nothing like that happens. So, yeah, funny times, but great, look back and think that was fun.
How did you feel about going home? Like, was it hard to, hard to accept that you were having to go home? Like, did you feel like there was unfinished business, or?
Well, actually, it's not exactly the way it happened. So I finished that year in 82 and just, went home. And then I then I heard, that it had gone under, and it was like, wow, so that gave me less time to get anything else organised. And then Kawasaki Australia sponsored me to stay there, but I really didn't want to do that, So I just went, how do I get out of here, within reason. I mean, I wanted to ride the 6 day like I'd been doing every year, and so I said to Kawasaki, can you help me? Can we get some sort of bike? And they go, no, mate, we got no interest in overseas, so our budget's all for here. And I said, so you don't care if I ride anything else? And they go, no, if it's overseas, you can do whatever you want.
Really?
Yeah. So it's kind of at the end of the season too, in a general sense. It's September or October.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had a friend, Ted Goddard, and he knew the product manager in America, Jeff Smith, who was twice 500 world champion in the 60s, and a Pommy guy who ran Can-Am. Anyway, back and forward, and so ended up getting a bike to do the Welsh 6 day in 83, and part of the deal was, it was like a trial. I wanted to go to America once Europe was over. I sort of felt like I could beat the Yanks, and so we made some sort of a deal where if I did well against the Yanks, then I get a ride. So I had a terrible 6 day. It was a bad one, but it didn't matter in the end because Jeff Smith was pretty cool. And as far as special test times, I beat all the Yanks. I just lost trail time because of stuff up with the organisers. It was very unfair for about 10 people got dudded, and I was one of them. But so it didn't, he knows, and he just went, man, I don't care. It's just special test times, and yeah, you were beating them. So I got a ride, and and I didn't know any other way of getting into the States. So, and I didn't know much about Can-Am, but it wasn't a bad bike, but most of the press never thought it was that great a bike. But anyway, I'd been, because the front disc brake came out on KXs that year, 83 was the first year they had them, and that was big. That was a big deal, and once I got used to the disc brake on it, I was going, man, this is the best thing ever.
Was it hard to get used to?
No, not at all. No, yeah. It had enough feel. Drums didn't really have feel. No. And especially in off-road, you go through a creek, you don't have a brake at all. Like, it was terrible. So discs would work underwater. We just couldn't believe it. And that would
have been like alien technology.
It was like, why did they take this long to come up with this stuff? So. Like I had, Kawasaki gave me KX 500 and KDX 200, and the KDX didn't have one, so I put one on it. I welded a bracket on, or got some dude in to weld, put on the back of the fork leg, the holder for the caliper and all that, and just adapted it on there. And I went, this is the go. I've got to have disc, So then I was organising the ride, and I said, has this thing got a disc on? They go, no. I go, oh man, has to, and can I bring one and put it on? And then the guys I was dealing with went, oh yeah, and when I got to the factory, they were made in England at that stage.
The Can-Ams?
Yeah, it used to be a Canadian company, but they'd moved it to Clues, which is used to be called CCM way back in the day, but it's family who were making bikes and stuff. Anyway, I turned up there and went, yeah, g'day, here I am, and where's my bike, and here's my disc, I want to weld on there. They're going, no way. They were paranoid about some sort of liability, and so I argued with them for quite a while, and in the end they presented some sort of thing to sign to saying, I'm not going to sue them or something. And they...
You're like, this is the opposite of that.
This is going to ensure well, they were probably worried it was going to break off or something, So anyway... So then I got this guy who could weld, man. He did a beautiful job. No, because you can't penetrate too much because then the fork won't go together. Anyway, he did everything right. Everything was perfect. Rode the 6 day, had no trouble at all with the brake. Didn't realise that in the background of this, Johnny Martin was my future teammate. So Johnny Martin is the dad of Jeremy and Alex Smartin.
Oh, yeah.
So he was a great guy.
He is
teammate.
A really nice guy.
Yeah.
I had no idea that.
Oh, right. Yeah, he owns Millville Motocross.
Yeah, I've stayed there with him. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. Great family.
Amazing people.
Yeah. So, small world, eh?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So, anyway, I get the deal with Can-Am, and they paid more money than anyone else, but they also hadn't won, really, and they were hungry for it, and, I guess some people thought their bikes weren't as good as the other, and that's why they maybe pay you more. But anyway, so I turn up there, and I met Johnny Martin for the first time, and he just goes, man, it's the greatest thing ever. You just talked him into having this disc, because Jeff Smith said if he has no trouble in the 6th day, then we'll put discs on the front.
Wow.
So it was good. So we had discs, and I think we, over there, the factory just bought Kawasaki parts and put them on there. I'm pretty sure that's how they did it, but we had discs, and the production bikes didn't have them. We had, standard bikes. That was pretty much standard. We had a few things maybe from the factory, but not a big deal. And anyway, I just got to know Johnny, and it was awesome stuff, and what a hard work and hard training.
Really? Unreal. So he was like that too?
Oh, he was nuts, yeah.
So I filmed for a Red Bull TV show. It was actually a European... I never ended up even seeing the TV show that we filmed for him. But we stayed there after the Millville National in maybe 15, 16. It was a few years ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was the first time I'd met Johnny. Yep. I knew the boys.
Yep.
And he was just the coolest guy. Like, he was taking us around everywhere. And I knew he rode back in the day, but I didn't know to that extent. Yeah. But the boys, man, are fucking animals. Yeah. Like Jeremy and Alex, and they had... There was like Phil Nicoletti was there. Yep. A couple of other big time AMA pros at the time. And those two boys made everybody else look like fucking pussies. Like, they all finished mountain bikes early. They all came home. They rode the track the day after the National. They did like 2 30-minute motos and a 90-minute mountain bike around the track for 90 minutes. Wow. And and Johnny was just there encouraging the boys. Me. And so I had no idea then that the old man was like that too. Oh, yeah. Really?
He was good. He was really good for me.
Such a little dude too.
Yeah. Well, he, even more than the sons. He had one leg about an inch shorter than the other, and he had like thick glasses. He had everything going against him, and we travelled. Travelled everywhere.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was a great experience. So he lives in Minnesota, as you know, and all that sort of stuff. But he was based in Duluth, Minnesota at the time, and Jen. Anyway, it took a lot to get Jen to. I'm going to America, she goes, nah. I'm going, why? She goes, nah, don't want to. I go, it's good, I've been before, it's fine. She goes, nah, don't want to. She wouldn't tell me, and then eventually I said, what's going on? Why don't you want to go? Oh, it's just the whole gun culture and everything. She just didn't like it, Anyway, I just said, well, man, come on, let's go. I'm going, And then she came and she loved it, but we had the craziest experience when we first got there. So we didn't go to Duluth, so I'm going now trying to make a living in America, and Barry Higgins was, my kind of contact, and he was in Georgia, so it's much more, I arrive in probably February or January, so it's cold.
Pretty cold there.
And, all the races are in like Florida or whatever, because all the stuff we did was pretty much... most of it was East Coast stuff, Yeah. Anyway, the first round's always in Florida, and a lot of them sand-based. And so anyway, it was funny because at the time, Jeff Smith, pretty amazing background, twice world motocross champion. He's my boss. He's just a hard-ass pom, And anyway, he said, what do you want to ride? And I said, 500, I'm a 500 rider. And he goes... Yeah, you want a 500? I go, yeah, sure, I want a 500. And so when he sent a 500 down to Barry's shop, and got there, put this thing together, and went, well, there's not much point practicing in the you know, Georgia Clay and all that stuff. Let's go south. We were jet lagged, you know, but we did it within maybe a day or something.
Yeah.
We headed.
How far south did you go in Florida?
I can't remember. Where, you know, it was all based around Daytona. We did the Alligator Enduro, and a lot of it was right there, you know, in part of Daytona week, you know. So anyway, I got this 500 out, and
what model 500 was it?
It was an 84 model motocrosser.
Yeah, right. Can-Am.
Yeah, Can-Am. Yeah. Anyway, I knew nothing about them.
Can you Google that, Rones? Yeah, I want to see what they look like. What?
Oh.
1984 Can-Am 500. Let's go.
It was the most...
I've never rode a 500 to this day.
It was the most violent thing I've ever ridden in my life.
Hey, click the shopping tag. Let's buy one. I don't think there'd be many around. Look at that thing. That's pretty sick.
No, it was, you know, like there was nothing wrong with it except it didn't handle and it had too much power. But so anyway, I got this thing. And,
what a badass bike.
And I wanted to. It was pretty funny because we didn't know where to ride. You know, we just went, oh man, I've got to find sand. Anyway, we got down into Florida where it started getting sandy, and I went, oh, yeah, we asked some people, you know. We're jet lagged, we're over it, you know. And said, oh, is there anywhere around here, you know, to ride? And now we're in the deep south where they speak funny, a lot of them, you know. Yeah. I mean, I was kind of used to it, but anyway, so they say, oh, there's this track up this like a dirt road, you know. So anyway, I had another friend in the car, and we just went up this, and it's night now, so you got this little tunnel of lights, and you're trying to figure out, oh, you know, this sounds a bit weird, you know. And anyway, we're going and going and going. This is longer than I thought it was going to be. Anyway, and eventually it came out in this bit of a clear. You could see grass mowed a bit, and then saw NGK spark plugs. I go, yeah, there is some sort of track here, you know. So that was it. We had a sliding camper, like an F-150 sliding camper that we'd only bought, you know, day before or something. And the bike was in the back. We didn't have a trailer. We were going to get a trailer. We were pretty disorganised. And so we just put it in the back, and it was banging around on the cabinets. And, you know, the whole thing cost nothing anyway. It was cheap, but it was, you know, not the ideal setup. So we took the bike out and put it against the van, and then just crashed. We were just so jet lagged, you know. Anyway, so, you know, let's say middle of the night or whatever, I'm dead asleep. And Jen wakes me up in this panic, and she's going, Geoff. I go, oh, and I wake up, and she goes, someone's trying to steal your bike. Oh. And so I just, you know, I am asleep, and now I'm bounced out of the bed at the back, and I go to the doors at the back of the camper, you know. And I open the door, and I can't see anything because this guy's lights are like on full beam or whatever, and they're just in. I can't see, you know. Yeah. But I know there's someone right there, and so this all happens in about 1 second because I just leapt out of bed, and I said something like, you know, what are you doing or whatever, and then I passed out and I collapsed onto my knees and then fell backwards and hit my head on the ground behind me, just like I'd been shot, you know. Anyway. Oh. Jen thought I'd been shot, and the other guy thought I was shot, and he pulled the blanket over thinking, okay, he's shot Geoff, he'll shoot her next, he'll think there's only two in the camper, I'll probably survive or something. That's what we were thinking. Why didn't you come out and help us, you know? So anyway, I just had low blood pressure in the days, and I used to, if I got up quick, I'd just pass out, you know? It was just so weird. No. But to make it worse, when Jen got out and she was screaming at this guy, and he just got in his car and took off. So it kind of made it worse. And then she's down looking at me, and she, you know, and she's looking for, you know, anything, blood and whatever. And I'm coming to go, what was all that about? Anyway, it was pretty funny. And then, you know, of course, hardly slept through the night. It was all weird and everything. And then in the morning, we could see this bit of a shack over there, and we went, oh, I wonder if that guy had anything to do with it. So we went over there, and he was like total, you know, redneck kind of, you know, could hardly understand us. Seriously, you really struggled to understand him. Anyway, we got it out of him, and he thought he came over to check it out. He thought we were all young kids, drugged out. I'd collapse because I was a drug addict, And then some other chick was just screaming at him, and he just goes, "Oh, for Christ's sake, I'm getting out of here," And he just took off. So it was just... And it was funny because Jen was paranoid about the gun cultures going in there, and this was her like second or third day or something in America and all that stuff. But anyway, so I got to ride the bike and hated it, absolutely hated it. Thought, I can't make a living on this bike. It's the worst thing I've ever ridden,
Really?
And, 3-hour cross country in the sand whoops, it's like...
On a 500.
It's just such a gnarly disgusting. 500. So anyway, so I got down to the race... And I met Jeff Smith for the first time, my boss, and he says, "What do you think of the bike?" I said, "Oh, no, not much." And he goes, "You wanted a 500?" He says, "Nobody likes those 500s." And I go, "Why didn't you tell me that?" He goes, "You just said you wanted a 500. I gave you a 500. Anyway, I said, "Oh, I really don't like it. I hate it, And he goes, "All right, you can ride my bike. I got a 250." So... Didn't seem very professional at the start, but I took off and 3-hour cross country and my contingency back then was really good, but it was just for first or second outright, nothing else.
Okay.
Can-Am didn't care, and it was fair enough in a way. But I chased these two 400 Huskies. Husky was massive in the States back then. It was just everybody was on Husky, all the top guys.
Yeah,
and there was two guys on 400 Huskies. I think it was Melton and I don't know, someone else. But anyway, I was like, it was ridiculous. I was like 15 seconds behind them the whole race, and the boards kept saying they're just there, and I was just out of whack the whole time. I tried so hard. And, basically I was just lying on the ground at the end of it, and I just went, I made nothing. I just didn't make 1 cent, because
really?
I won the 250 class, and I got third outright, but I got nothing. And Jeff Smith kind of was impressed, though, and he just went, well, okay. So, and he gave me some money for just because he wanted to, Mm-hmm. So he gave me, I think, $250 or something, which back then's maybe like $1,000 now or something. So it was like, that was decent, it wasn't in my contract. Anyway, had the craziest year ever, and I ended up, it was so nuts. I won some races outside of the series. So the series was called Hare Scramble, which was 3-hour cross country, and it was the only national series at the time. So there was the GNCC, but that was only a small series. It was only east of the Mississippi at the time, and we used to ride them for practice, but if we won them, we never got a cent. It wasn't the main series at the time, but they were all the same 3-hour cross country. Anyway,
How did that work? Did you obviously like pulled in for fuel and stuff, but like that's pretty much your only stops was just fuel?
Just one stop. No camelbacks existed.
Really?
So we stopped at, only took 6 seconds to fuel.
So you could do 1.5 hours on a tank of fuel back then?
That was one of the things a lot of guys had to do too. And the Can-Ams had an awesome fuel tank. It was actually pretty much made for the cross-country market in America. So it was decent. It was one of the things that was good about the Can-Am. It had a Rotax engine, an unusual thing where the kickstarter shaft is hollow and the gear lever comes through the kickstarter shaft. So the kickstarter is quite low. It doesn't happen on the 500, but on the 250.
Yeah, right.
If you look at that picture, maybe.
Which one?
That one looks like it.
This one down here?
Yeah, it says 500, but it looks like a... Yeah, no, it is a 500, yeah. But if you make it a 250...
They're a pretty,
cool, that one on the top left there looks like a 250. Yeah, that is a 250, and you might see. But anyway, the gear lever comes out through the
yeah, there it is. There.
Yeah, through the kickstarter shaft. So it's a low kickstarter. So for dead engine starts, which cross country it was good. You could get a good kick. We used to get good starts, and that's the wrong fuel tank. That's a year before. No, it's not. Maybe it's on the other side. But anyway, these other ones, they're all shown on the left-hand side. Anyway, it was a good tank, and we could go an hour and a half, and often, depending in the sand.
That's wild.
It was pretty wild, yeah. And you just you didn't have to stop your bike.
Yeah.
You know the rules in Australia. We've got more rules than anyone, but you have to stop your bike. Someone would hold your clutch as they're fueling. You'd take the goggles off the guy fueling or the guy holding your clutch, put it on, and you swap and just go. And if you had another second or two, you might have a splash of water or something. But yeah, no one invented camelbacks back then. So, and that was, to be honest, that was one of my biggest things that helped me was, I mean, all my mates call me the camel because I just, I don't ever use camelbacks or drink systems really. I never do. 4 days, 6 days, I never wear them. And whenever I go try, I don't even, just don't really use them, So I had no trouble. And everyone else had trouble. So that was one of the things. I was thirsty at the end, but I was fine, And, it made a difference, But anyway, it was a pretty decent bike. But I went through that year, even though I won some of the, enduros like we know them, the qualifiers and things like that, I won the championship on the last race. There was 4 guys who could win it on the last race, and they let us 4 go 1 minute in front of the whole field, which was pretty cool. So we didn't get taken out by someone. And but I won. There was only one guy out of the 4 who could beat me, and if I got second to him, I would still win. There was only one, and that was Johnny Martin. So he was in there with a chance, and that's the way it worked. It was the craziest thing ever. But to make it even funnier, I won the series and I never won a race. All I got was seconds and thirds, and I won. And on the last race, I ended up second. Yeah. I had something a little bit going wrong. It was pretty funny because they knew they had a pretty damn good chance of winning a championship, their first championship, and so they employed a film crew. I've never seen this film.
Oh God, I want to watch it.
And they employed this film crew, and we were pretty disorganised. But somebody before the start said, "Oh yeah, I think it's half-hour laps." So you go, okay, 6-hour race. 3-hour race, six laps. Mentally you're prepared for 6 laps. Back then we used to do a sighting lap, So I was riding around. I used to ride heaps of 6 days and things without gloves. I used to hate gloves. They were pretty shit in the early days.
Fuck that.
And so I took off on the sighting lap.
I can't imagine the grips being that good either.
No, they weren't that good. So I had to feel right, and I took off in the sighting lap, and I went, I just don't feel right. This is where it all going to come down to this last round. And so I stopped, and I took my gloves off and put them down pants, and then just took off and went, yeah, I'm ready. This is it. I'm going to do it. Anyway, so mentally I'm prepared for 6 laps. And I had some sort of issue. I can't remember now. My bike was hard to start. And anyway, no, it was hard to start if it fell over or I did something. I don't know why I knew that, but there was something that happened that made me think, okay, geez, I hope that doesn't happen, Anyway, Johnny was winning it, and I caught him, and I thought, I don't have to win, but I'm scared now someone's going to catch us and beat us, So I went to pass him, and I stuffed it up, and I did a sort of a slow motion sort of endo, no big deal, but, weird sort of crash. And I ran back to my bike before it stopped, and I got on it before it stopped, and I just went, oh man, just don't do that, because if it was hard to start, I'd lose it, So anyway, I took off again, and Johnny had pulled a little bit on me because of the crash. Anyway, and I came around thinking, okay, mentally I was geared for 6 laps, so I came in. We were very disorganised, so I must have looked hilarious. So I came in on the 3rd lap thinking, I'm going to fuel. So I came in, and of course no one, you don't talk to each other, you just fuel, Yeah. So I fueled and took off again. And so then I'm going, when I come around, I'm hoping like hell there's going to be the checkered flag, And if not, then I'll have to do one more lap. But because of halfway, I might have to get a splash of fuel, Oh. So I came around there just praying that the checkered flag was going to be there, and I I could see it wasn't out, and so then my pits were just before it. So I went in thinking, just give me 1 litre, 2 litres or something, you know. And so this has been filmed, so I've never seen it, so it must be so funny. So I'm arguing with them, and it's all happening so quick because it only takes 6 seconds anyway. So they just hold the thing on for like 2 seconds. So I'm trying to push the fuel can away, and they're pushing it back, and fuel's going everywhere, and we're having like this fighting match of pushing this thing away. And they say to me, you've got 3 more laps or something to go. So it was like 20-minute laps, not 30 or something.
Yeah.
Anyway,
right.
So I let them put the fuel in, but mentally I was gone. Like my hands were blistered, and mentally I was like, are you kidding? I have to do 3 more laps, you know? So I still had to do like another hour or something, and I was raw, you know? So anyway, I battled around, and I just kept looking over my shoulder, and no one else was coming, and Johnny was going to win it, but I was going to win the championship, and that's how it happened, you know? And but anyway, it was funny because big celebrations, you know, and then, you know, Jen was there, and then Jeff Smith and Jen weren't getting on all that well, and then he wanted to fly us to New York for something, sponsorship, and he wasn't going to bring her, and then it was just, it was crazy. Anyway, what was crazy about that was I won the championship and never won one race, and then the next year I turned up and I won the first 4 in a row. Like, and I just went, how good's this, you know? And you could drop your worst 2 out of the 12 or 13 round series. It was the way they did it, you know?
Yeah.
And then I got glandular fever, and or mononucleosis, they call it over there. So I didn't know. I flew all the way to California. Jeff Smith was a hard ass, as I said, and we went to this race at Shasta Dam, which is up above San Francisco somewhere. And mate, I was ready to die. I was going, Jeff, I can't ride. And he's going, you're riding, mate, you're riding. I'm going, I can't, I just can't. I can't hardly get out of this chair. And it was just so crazy, and I was having trouble sort of swallowing, and I was going, what's going on? He's just, whatever, mate. You know, he hated feather bedding, he called it. Anyway, I just went, oh, damn, you know, he's got no idea. I'm battling in it. And it started at a place called Shasta Dam, and so it started on dirt, but you went onto this damn road, which was bitumen, and everybody was whinging about because we were off-road racing. What are we racing on tar for? Anyway, I didn't even want to be there, but I got the whole shot, you know. So here I am. I mean, it was everything to win, you know. And so I got onto the dirt, and it was pretty dry and dusty, and I got onto the dirt first, and I was just going, wow. You know, because in my mind I was just, you know, Jeff Smith wouldn't take no for an answer. I said, all right, I'll start, but I'll pull out, you know. And so I'm like dying, but I'm winning, so I can't pull out, and I'm just doing laps and laps. And anyway, in the end, it really got to me, and in the last hour, I was so bad. I don't know what I finished, but I think it was what they call a throwaway. So if you didn't get in the top 3 or 4, then you threw it out, you know. Anyway, I went straight to the ambulance, and then they took me to hospital, and then they go, man, you know, that was crazy because your spleen was so enlarged. They said if you'd fallen off, you know, you would have ruptured your spleen for sure. And they said it can, you know, rupture spontaneously if it's as big as it is, and all this stuff, you know. So Jeff Smith felt pretty bad, and so I had to stay in California there for a while. So then I had this for a while, and so then I had to miss 2 rounds.
Plus you'd already thrown away the third one. Yeah.
And so, you know, it came down to the last round again. So the 3 years that I was there, the first year there was 4 of us could win on the last round, the second time 3, and then the last time 4 of us again. So it was always close, you know. But I loved it, and I loved America. I loved racing and got to know more and more people, and Jen was comfortable and loved it in many, many ways too. So, you know, it ended because, you know, I used to sort of sneak into the country every year. It was weird because I talked to Craig Dack later when he was doing the thing with Reedy over there, and it was all changed, and you you had people who organised sports visas for you, and I didn't know how to do any of that stuff, you know. So I just used to go over with a ticket that was returned in 2 weeks and just, you know, stayed.
Yeah.
Just stayed. And back in the day, the Americans, they had like a big phone book. They used to look through for your name to see if you were some sort of criminal, and they go, oh, no, you're not on the list, you can go, you know. And I, you know, I thought the next year they're going to go, hey, you said the same thing last year and you'd stayed forever, you know, but they didn't. And but anyway, it was always a worry. I was going, man, I've got this job and it's great and everything's good, but I'm only getting paid under the table, you know. Anyway, Can-Am decided that, you know, it's a huge company. They make planes and trains and all sorts of things, and they had 2 recreational products. One was Can-Am motorbikes, and the other was Ski-Doo, snowmobiles. And so they decided the motorcycle game was a tough one, and they were going to get out of it and make Sea-Doos, you know. But it was all hush-hush, and they had a lot of thousands of bikes they were going to try and sell. So they didn't want to tell anyone, but we'd already made a handshake agreement, you know. I'd won the championship, and to come back, you know, I'd won the Enduro one, which was like our one, you know, the 6-day qualifier series. There's 2, it's confusing in America. They have another form of Enduro that we're not familiar with. But anyway, it was a handshake agreement at that stage, but it was all, you know, good. And I went home via New Zealand because, you know, that's where Jen's from. And my mum was a Kiwi, so I sort of know the place. And yeah, so, and the first year, you know, I'd never made any money. And when I won the championship, I got, you know, for me, it was a lot of money. They gave me a 50 grand bonus or something.
Wow. And
so it was like, wow, I've been on the bones of my arsehole and they've got this money. So I went to New Zealand, and then I was back where Jen used to live in Whangamata or Whangamata and East Coast, Coromandel Peninsula stuff. And I went, if I was a bit smart, I'd put this money into buying a block of land or something, which you could do back then with that sort of thing, or put it towards it. I can't remember what I paid, but anyway, bought a block of land, you know, thought I'll blow it if I don't do something with it. So I did that, and I was keen on, you know, New Zealand. And so, you know, we used to go back through there a bit, and yeah, next year. And then back then it's the days of telex, and I got a telex saying from Can-Am saying, you know, bad news or something. There'd been an amnesty in America, so, you know, all the Mexicans who were working, whatever, you know, come forward, we'll give you a green card. And it was explained like there was so many more than the government had ever thought, that they decided to crack down on the employers, and they were going to have huge fines or jail sentences for employing illegal aliens, which is what I was referred to, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, it's all over, you know. And it wasn't like I could go to Suzuki or Kawasaki or Honda or anyone. They were all having a go, you know, especially Husqvarna. They were strong. But I could have gone to anyone and said, hey, I want to ride for you. But because the way it was presented, it was the government. It was like, you don't have any proper visa, so you're out. And so I just went, that's it. And it was pretty well. I didn't even know about this for 2 years later, because I went over with Geoff Eldridge to a vintage day, and I saw my old boss who lost his job too, really, and he ended up being the chief champ of the Vintage Association or something, and he was at this meeting, and I go, oh, there's my old boss, and he goes, oh, I've got to tell you what really happened, and, you know, I wanted to kill him. I was like, surely you could have told me.
What ended up really happening?
Well, you know, I just did nothing. So they just were trying to protect the fact that they were going to try and sell all these bikes, and it didn't look good if they said, hey, we're stopping production and we're not making Can-Am anymore. So they felt that they could sell the bikes better if they, you know, they were not going out of business. So anyway, I just felt like thinking, oh, man, you could have told me, you know, signed a confidentiality agreement or something.
Yeah.
And I could have just said, yeah, I had a blue with Jeff Smith and I just don't want to ride for him anymore, and I'll go and ride for anyone else. So that's where I felt pretty dudded by Can-Am. You know, I thought, oh, there should have been a way you could have told me. That was what I was doing and loving. And So anyway, it ended, and I was a bit lost, and I don't know, I was doing different things and doing a bit of work for ADB or something, but I was frustrated, man. My talents, I want to be in the States, or at least, or Europe or something, and but then I kept thinking, you know what, I don't know, maybe I should do something else. And in the background of all this was Al Baker, who was a pretty famous desert racer and a character and a cool guy. And he used to be Johnny O'Mara's manager.
Yeah, right.
And he was famous for sort of developing the XR Honda.
Yeah.
And then he went on to help develop the DR Suzuki as well. But anyway, I'd got to meet him and got to know him a little bit.
In America or Australia?
Yeah, in America.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that all came about, but we did, and stayed at his place a few times, and he said, man, you should do this XR. He had a business XRs only in America, and he said, you should do this in Australia. They sell a lot of XRs in Australia. And I go, oh, okay. But naive Geoff was like, yeah, mate, I'm just going to race for the rest of my life. Forget it,
Yeah.
And anyway, so now I was in a spot. I was back in Australia, didn't really want to be, and I was doing a few things for ADB, and they said, can you test this XR, do something on it and fill some pages? And I was going, yeah, okay. And they go, hey, I might race it, So anyway, I thought, yeah, it's the best way to test it. Just flog it and just see how it goes, And anyway, so I went in a race where you share with a guy. I was with Dave Stewart, who was a mate of mine. And so we just had so much fun, man. We were fighting over the bike. Give it back to me. We were standing out there going,
so what year was this? What
this was
look up this bike. What?
88. Yeah,
88.
This was 88.
XR 600.
Yeah, 80.
Or was it a 650 then?
Oh no, it was a 600.
Yeah.
But I rode a 250. It was a 250 XR.
Oh right.
So it was an 86 XR 250, which was just of a new model. It was the first single carb XR.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was.
There it is.
Yeah, it was a beauty because the 85 was a twin carb, so there was big changes. It was a decent bike. It was awesome.
Yeah, disc brakes or disc brake.
Yeah, it had a disc brake on the front only.
Yeah.
And it was a great little bike. But at the time, I had a mate. Peter Payne was in Honda at the time, and then he said, I said, I wanted confidence. Anyway, I went, man. And I was talking to Dave Stewart.
What was good about this bike? Like, what do you remember about it?
It steered. It was. It handled pretty well, and it steered like no other bike.
Really?
And in the tight technical stuff, which it was a lot of enduro, really, you could ride it so fast. It was so deceiving, and it was. You were not supposed to go fast on one of these things like this, but that made it more fun. It was like stealth mode, made no noise. We won this race on this bike, So we went back in the same ute, his ute, and we were just going, man, that was the most fun I think we've ever had in our life. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then it went ding. I went, this is that bike that old mate said, about. Yeah. So then I went, geez, I better ring him. So I rang him and I said, maybe I should do this. And he goes, you damn right you should, blah, blah, blah. So Peter Payne was my mate in Honda at the time, and I said, I'm thinking about doing this, and he goes, that's the best idea ever. And
so what was the idea?
The idea was to take on, work in with Al Baker and be XRs only Australia.
Yeah.
So it was a good idea in as far as XRs were bread and butter bikes, and everyone had one, and there was lots in Australia, and no one specialised. It was a bit like in the older days going Commodores only,
Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot of Commodores, so that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
And anyway, so Al Baker had a catalogue, and so I went, I'm going to do a catalogue. And I had no business experience. It was, it was scary for me. It was really like overwhelming many times. The first catalogue, I threw it on the ground 4 or 5 times going, forget it, I'm not doing this. Because everything was on my own, and my old man was a bit doom gloom, and he was like...
So you would probably been about 30 around this time, you reckon?
I was 30, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, by the time I actually started in 88, we've always said it started in 89, but I actually started in 88, so I was 29 or something, you know. And
that's pretty crazy, eh?
Yeah.
Look, I guess nowadays
it just worked, you know, and it was a timing thing, and I lost my ride, so I was like, yeah, damn, frustrating, you know, what am I going to do?
Got to do something.
Got to do something. I can't believe I'm actually working now. Anyway, the idea was good. What a turning point. Oh, and then Eldridge was like, yeah, this is the greatest idea. And what was so funny was I knew nothing about four-strokes, right? Nothing. And then Eldridge was so embarrassing because he was putting stuff in the magazine going, Ballard, the king of thump. And I'm going, will you shut up about that? Because, you know, people were into four-strokes and I knew nothing. I didn't even hardly know they had valves, you know? And then I'd have guys like when I started, it was just me with a phone that you hung up on the wall, you know, and didn't have an answering phone or anything like that. So, and Honda got behind me and gave me all these bikes, and I was like, okay, XR600, that's like a tank, man. But it was registered, so I used to race up to the post office on it with a few parcels in a backpack.
And so, did you just sold XRs only Australia? Just sold parts for XRs.
Yeah,
and that's it.
I used to get up early in the morning and go down to a mate's engineering shop in Penrith, like 5, you know, early, and make damper rods. Like I went to America. The first thing I did was I went over to America and hung out with Hal Baker for, you know, a month or something, and he taught me everything he could. You know, suspension was a big deal. You know, they were all a bit undersprung. You know, you can improve damping in the forks by making damper rods. This is back in damper rods days before cartridge. And, you know, that sort of stuff. You know, you put cams and all that. And we learned to do big fin heads. And big fin heads were popular, man, because it was a visual thing. It was like, you know, they helped. What were they called? Big fin heads. So they were alloy finned. You know, they were not water cooled.
Yeah.
So,
you
know, we'd extend the fins, and it was like branding, man. It was like saying, you've had the motor done, you know. So, you can see on the top left there, that's one of ours. Yeah. By the look of that.
So, my dad, I wish I texted him before this. There would be photos of me as a kid sitting on my, like as a 2-year-old, 1-year-old, sitting on my dad's XR650.
Yeah.
And I remember it had a Ballards bash plate on it.
Oh, okay.
And I always remember seeing like the Ballards sticker. So I remember a lot of this stuff from like when I was a kid in the shed of my dad's XR650.
Yeah. Well, there's a few there. There's one there that's got the roll pins going through it, which is one from America. But we went to the fins, the strips on the side, and
what a crazy head! Like now, like as a kid, I would have never really known, but like looking at it now, it's a little bit more knowledge.
Yeah. It was just something, you know. We did. It was all just about XRs. We just specialised in them, and it was, man, guys were into them, and it was cool. So, just what we did, mate. It was fun. It was fun, and the bikes, you know, it was surprising how well you could go on them. We started a race team too from the word go, so we had some guys racing CRs for us, you know. So we ran the off-road team for Honda. That was sort of part of the deal, and we thought it was a good idea too for just promotion of the business, you know. But we did a lot with XRs, and we just raced some CRs and stuff, but we didn't really do too much to them. We learnt, you know, revalving and suspension, and over the time we did stuff like that. But then, in Honda, so I was locked into Honda, even though, you know, it was only really a sponsorship, but my life was surrounded by XRs only. It was branded, man. That was you. And then this guy came into Honda at the time. His name was Bell, and he was a dickhead. I hated him. Absolutely hated him. No, not at all. Glenn Bell was like the best ever.
He's the nicest dude in the world.
Best ever. I can't remember the guy's first name, but anyway, the guy before him, I think, was Stuart Strickland. He was a great bloke, and anyway, I ended up with this guy, and I go, what a dick, you know. And it was good for me because it was like, I went, man, I've got to put up with this guy. I don't like him, but and so then, you know, things were changing, and we were, you know, riding some CRs and things, and And other people were saying, "Oh, you're importing stuff from White Brothers and all these sort of people, and can you get this for me?" And it's like, "Oh, well, we're sort of XRs only, you know." And so then we just went, let's diversify. So we went XRs only Enduro Cross. You know, we put 2 names out there, and so under the Enduro Cross banner, we could just do whatever. You know, it didn't matter if you had a bloody Ossa or whatever. If we could find something and it was worth bringing in and thought it was a decent product, then we'd do it, you know. So we started growing outside of the XR. XR was still bread and butter.
Was XRs only like popular straight away?
Straight away.
Like it did well for you straight away,
yeah. And as a non-business guy, it was overwhelming a bit, you know, because my old man was a great guy, but doom and gloom, you know, and
too hard basket.
Yeah, he was like, you've just got to work hard and you can't employ anybody. They cost you twice as much as you think.
Yeah.
All that stuff. So, it was hard. So then Dave Stewart ended up the guy who I rode the XR with. He was my first employee, and he had more mechanical skills. I had like zero, you know, really. I mean, I could mechanical, but the 4-strokes was like bad. So it was such a relief to get my first employee, and then just kept building on it, you know. I wasn't actually that gung-ho. I didn't really care. You know, I wanted to have a business. I just thought, this is cool. I can have a business and keep riding because I love riding. And it just sort of got to the point where I was holding it back more than I was doing anything, you know.
Yeah, because you weren't like all in.
I wasn't really all in. I was conservative, you know. And I started with nothing, and I borrowed a little bit of money from parents and couldn't wait to pay it back. Did that in the first year, and I was conservative, you know, but I worked hard, but I, you know, made sure we were only ever open on weekdays, and then we raced on weekends, and, you know, just went. So, you know, I was conservative really. And anyway, you know, soon after, I guess, you know, I'd been going all these 6 days, and the final motos in 6 days at times were just, they're not like it anymore, but they were absolutely epic, like grass track golf course final motos.
I remember seeing some of that stuff back in the day. It was just thinking it looked incredible.
Just amazing. And we used to finish a 6 day in the final motos and stuff and go, that's just unbelievable how good that is, you know. And Eldridge had done a 6 day, and different people, and Hans Appelgren had done a 6 day, and anyway, you know, Eldridge was the magazine guy, and Hans Appelgren was a Husqvarna importer at the time and had secretaries and all that stuff, and I had sort of the track knowledge and experience of tracks and stuff, and so that's how the Thumpernats started. We all got together and just said, hey, you know, we don't care, like whatever's out there now, we don't care. This is just a hunch, but we think it's a good one, and we're gonna do this race series, you know, and we'll have a pro class, and we'll have this, and we'll have that, but we'll have all these rules, you know, like it's all about the track. Like people get carried away with, you know, worrying about spectators, worrying about, you know, making money from them coming through the gate or whatever. So. And then having to have prize money and all that. So we had rules: no prize money, no matter what. Can only be 1 day of racing because we want to start on grass. Can't be, you know, something we're trying to water into powdery berms for the second day. It's just got to be Lone Town, you know. Yeah. It's got to be, you know, we changed some rules just as we went a little bit because it has to be natural terrain. And we just went like that, and we just went, let's see how it goes, but we're pretty sure it'll go. Oh my God, it just went nuts. And what was funny about it was at the time, all of the pros, like the Michael Burns, I think was maybe there at the same time. I mean, he was awesome later on, and you know, Chad Reed and different pros rode it, you know, or later rode it, but at the time, they're looking going, there's no prize money as if we're going to ride that, you know, what's all that about?
That's crazy. Those dudes ended up racing an event that had no prize money.
Yeah, so
purely based on the merit of rules. How good the event was.
Yeah, you could not do it, you know. So what happened then was it just took off, mate. It was unbelievable, and because Eldridge owned the magazine, it was just bigger than Ben-Hur. And then all the manufacturers, like every single manufacturer sponsored it. Like everyone wanted in, you know. And and people used to come and watch it. Like so many people would watch it. And people would be on the side of the track going, I could do that. You know, if you go to a modern
thing, not the intimidating jumps.
It's not the intimidating stuff, and they go.
It's very relatable,
and it's like the tracks are so wide. You know, the pros are going here, and you know, even if they're lapping me, there's plenty of room. I feel like I can go to work on Monday or something. You know, but it was like it just took off though. We had Schmetz came out, and you know, and Shane and Daryl King rode, and all these top guys. But anyway, so the first year or two. It was the pros was Heffernan and Armstrong. They were the two fastest in the pro class, you know, and they were battling it out, and they got really good at riding that stuff. You know, what
bikes were they on? Were they on XRs and stuff?
No, they were on Huskies. Armstrong, I'm not sure exactly. Oh, he was on a KDM. Yeah, he was on a KDM, and Heffo was on a. He was on Husky, you know, and anyway, these guys battled and got better and better at this stuff, you know, and the pros were, I guess, back in the background and laughing a bit, going, mate, they're winning, so whatever, you know. No prize money, but you know, Hefo was a great rider, and so was Armstrong. Obviously, Des Nations team back in the time with Armstrong and Hefo made a living a bit on moto, so it was good. But at that stage, they were retired pros, and they went, let's go and do this for fun, and then they got into it, you know, and then they were going, wow, how good's this? Meanwhile, the pros were back there going, yeah, right, we're going to ride this prize money. No, so then the manufacturers all started going, this is bigger than anything out there. We want to win it. So then, of course, the contingency comes into it, and they sign a contract, and they go to, you know, whoever, you know, Burn, and they go, right, you got to ride the Thumpernats, you know, and we'll give you a contingency if you win it, and we'll give you, I don't know, whatever, you know. So they indirectly got money.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. I mean, we went through these years of having these tracks, and it was all about the track. No matter what, you know, we did it through clubs. It was all non-profit. We didn't want to make a cent. We couldn't make a cent. It was nothing about that. And so there wasn't any self-penalising start gates at the time that were transportable. So that was one of my jobs too. I made those gates, and I would transport them. I would even have a little, you know, stall at the thing. I raced the pro class and the over 35s. Man, it was nuts. And I'd go all the way to Queensland, and I used to be paranoid about people opening the shop, so I would just drive all night to come back. I just was like, what the hell am I doing? You know, it was pretty crazy. But the thing just was taking off, and it became televised, and it was so much bigger than the Australian Motocross Championship. It wasn't even funny. You know?
That is crazy.
And these huge events were happening, and
how many people were you getting to these things?
Oh, it was maxed. Everything was maxed out. It was like within no time, every class was full.
But how many spectators?
Oh, thousands, but yeah, I don't know. You know, the ones that would attract guys like Schmetz and the world champion dudes. I don't know. There was plenty, but the noise as well of 40 big 4-strokes. At the time, 4-strokes weren't really a big deal. We were modifying trail bikes, but it soon came to the point where, you know, they were starting to get 4-strokes, and Craig Anderson turned up on the first 400 YZF, and you know, stuff like that. But
it would have been so sick to watch Craig Anderson.
It was so sick, but it sort of got out of control in the end, and you know, the manufacturers taking over, and then they all had semis, and they, you know, we didn't care. Like, it was about the track. It wasn't about parking semis. And so the track started to change. Well, actually, that happened more later. So we got to the point where we were going, I'm trying to run a business. I'm not making 1 cent out of the thumpers and don't want to. It was not about that. It was the clubs were making some money, but we were doing a lot of the work. And we're going, man, look, you know, we got other things to do, and it's great that the series is going good and all that stuff.
And I'm sure your business was growing at this point too.
And my business was growing. So we decided, hey, let's talk to Kevin Williams, and we'll put all, you know, he was dying in a way, all the way, I believe, because it must be hard for Kevin, because he was running like Australian motocross stuff, and the Thumpernats was 10 times bigger, you know. And, you know, maybe he's talking to somebody from overseas and they go, oh, how's it all going, Australian champs? And they go, he's probably saying, well, actually, there's this other thing called Thumpernats. It's a bit weird, but it's the go, you know. And so, you know, he probably went, wow, you know, this is pretty crazy. And things were changing because 4-strokes were just starting to come out. But anyway, we handed it over to him for $0 or anything. It was just a handshake agreement, or maybe we had some sort of contract, but the contract was all about staying within the rules and, you know, no prize money and blah blah blah. But, you know, some people I heard blame and said, oh, when he took over, it just that lost it and everything. But it was not completely that. It was also a timing with you know, 4-strokes weren't a big deal. Like they were production.
Yeah, you guys were like a novelty event at the start.
So the Australian Motocross Championship started having 4-strokes in it, you know. So the novelty had gone a bit, and the tracks that we all just, you know, could not believe how good they weren't going there anymore because the semis wouldn't fit. You know, if you want to take a semi there, you got to have proper flat ground and access, and so it was weird. It was around the other way, you know. It was a shame, you know. So it changed, and, you know, I guess a natural death in a way. But you know, there's certainly room for another series, you know, of that sort of stuff.
My brain's turning. I'm thinking like, fuck, we could do that.
Oh, honestly, it's like everyone's looked at a golf course and gone, why can't we race around there?
Oh, yeah.
And that's what we were doing. But we'd also figured out that 2 days, you know, we could have easily had twice as many people if we'd had other classes on Saturday, and a bit like the Amcross, but we sort of knew that at the end of one full day of racing, that track was gone and all the grass was gone and piled up on the edges, and trying to water that stuff, it's tricky and
just turns to ice,
and it's lost its novelty. So we just went, no, it's just that many classes, and let's go for it, you know. So another thing that just sort of eventually faded out, but, you know, maybe one day we might resurrect something.
I'm down. When did you start to enjoy business, or like, did you ever enjoy business? Because from like, I'll talk about your like lineage of business is like you do the XRs only, and then that slowly morphs into Ballards, which is one of the. What's the stat around the catalogue? Doesn't your catalogue go out to like more people, or don't you have like, isn't there some crazy stat around the catalogue itself?
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, the catalogue, you know, we're up to number 39, and I did 35 of them, you know, in the early days that I was doing it. Some years we had 2 a year, you know, but it was a real tool. And before, you know, promoting, it was a good thing. And yeah, you know, it was funny that you said, when did I start enjoying it? So, I mean, there would have been times for sure I go, hey, I'm damn lucky, this is good, I can, you know, race and have a business around it. So,
but you had a great business, like Ballards Off-Road, but even before, like pre MX Store, great business, and then MX Store, you do the deal with MX Store, which I think's maybe one of the best deals that MX Store's ever done. Yeah, and then you slot into now this like hyper modern framework for your business. So it's like, if you look at the trajectory of your business career, like you've got Geoff Ballard, the riding career, and then Geoff Ballard, the business career. There's a great business career there as well. And it's funny, it's like, I don't know whether you even see yourself as a businessman or if you even enjoy business. Because I'll say, like, for me personally, I only ever I've worked myself my entire life. Like, I've only ever had a couple of jobs, and it was when I was a kid. Yep. I couldn't work for anybody. But that wasn't because I loved business. That was just because I didn't want to work for somebody. Yeah. But I've got the podcast has made me love like the business side of things. It's something now I enjoy. Yeah. But that wasn't until like a couple of years. Yeah. You know, so where are you at with even enjoying business? Yeah. Well, because you're a great businessman.
Well, by sheer ass, I'd say, because I'm not really, but in a way, you
definitely are.
I guess I am in as far as when I started, I knew nothing about business, and I went, well, how do you do this? And obviously, you know, I'm trying to do my best at getting products, but in the bottom line, I just thought, well, I'm just going to treat the customer the way I would want to be treated. So that was everything that I wanted, you know, and that was how I based it. and that's how it kind of grew through the years. You know, a lot of respect for the customer and just trying to do it, just trying to help them. People used to ring us up all the time wanting to know jetting for their XR or, you know, valve cleaners. We just give it to them, you know. We'd talk to them for ages on it. You know, we didn't care. You know, that one we didn't make any money, but whatever. I mean, it didn't matter, but we found out sort of slowly. People go, man, they won't tell us anything, these other guys. I go, oh, okay. But anyway, that, you know, we just thought it was, you know, fine and everything was normal. But as far as the business, I didn't think I was a businessman, you know, at all. But at the same time, I think I had some pretty good ideas, and I had a good gut feeling on what was the right thing to do, you know. But after 25 years, I was a bit burnt out, and, you know, I had a heart-to-heart with my son, Josh. And, you know, he'd been racing pro sort of enduro and going well, but he was not Toby Price, you know, and in Australia, if you're not in the top three, he was, you know, on his best day, he could maybe get in the top 3 or 5 or something, but he was not the guy who was going to be a guy making a living from it, you know, but we supported him a bit, and it was good, and he worked in the business, but, you know, I got to the point where I was getting tired of it, and I go, oh, Josh, you know, what are you going to do? And, you know, I think it's, you know, maybe not right now, but in the, you know, near future, you need to start thinking about it, and maybe you can take over. And he just goes, what? And he goes, no, not in a pink fit, not in a million years, never ever.
Really?
And I go, what are you going to do? He goes, I just want to join the military. And I'm like, what the hell? Where did that come from?
So you never knew that?
Never knew. And,
wow.
And then he says stuff like, yeah, that's all I've ever wanted to do. I go, what? And then talk to my wife, and she goes, what? And I go, yeah, that's what he said. So then I was in like, right, I'm over it. I've done 25 years. So
you'd kind of checked out because you thought that Josh would take it over, like it was just like
a natural... No, I hadn't thought about that until I started getting burnt out a bit, you know. Okay. And
but it probably helped your decision to be over it, like thinking that your son would want to take it over.
And of course, through the years, you know, we ran 10 years of race team for Honda, and then 14 years with Yamaha, but I was enjoying that. I was enjoying the guys, and we had a property that was amazing for training guys up in 1,150 metres, so fairly high, which was, it's not altitude training, but it's so much cooler to train. A lot of these riders do the majority of their training in the summer, you know, off season, and so it's a good place. You can do a lot of riding there. It's really good. So anyway, I was enjoying that more, and I was at the point where I was going, oh, I don't want to go to work. And so I'd go to work, you know, 4 days a week, and then 3, and then 2, and then 1. I was over it. Like, I was just going, I don't want to do it anymore. And, you know, so I'm trying to sell it, and I had Brad Beddoes manager, and he was awesome, absolutely fantastic, and, you know, greatest guy I ever had employed, really. He was awesome. So, you know, he was doing a good job, but it was also, we weren't accounting for everything, and we weren't as efficient maybe as should have been, you know, with, you know, you can lose a lot of money by sea freighting over air freighting and different things like that. So, you know, Brad was thrown in the deep end, and he was doing his best, and, you know, you coming into work? Nah, you know, I'm just staying up here where the wombats and kangaroos are. And anyway, I sort of got to that point, and I was going, okay, I'm trying to sell it. But the business, it was an awesome business. It really was. But it was sort of going down a bit, you know, but down a bit only because it wasn't worked 100%, you know. Yeah. But, you know, I put it out there to different people trying to sell. It's pretty that would have been a big
business.
Yeah, it was, you know, not really, not compared to MX, but...
Yeah, okay.
But, you know, it was my life. There was a lot of heart in it, and you know, time to not do this, you know. And so anyway, I did the usual thing and tried to put it out there without making it collapse and everybody bailing out, because, you know, I was getting out, and it really wasn't working too well. And a lot of people who were talking to me were doing the typical, you know, trying to cheapen it through, oh, it's going down, and, you know, just stuff that's, you know, hard to take, and you know, it's an emotional sort of thing, selling a business you've had for 25 years, and I knew it was a great business. And then I talked to Jake. I was out of touch, man. I wasn't hardly going to work. So somebody, Mark Luxic, who you know.
Oh, yeah.
So Mark Luxic he's a good mate. And he just said, hey, you know, maybe you should talk to Jake at MX Store. I go, what's MX Store, you know? And he goes, they're really good online. And that was our weakness. Our strength was our catalogue. And I go, yeah, maybe, you know. And so I talked to Jake, and he was just so nice and so different than everyone else. And I was just going, man, this guy's great. I love it. And anyway, I think I talked to him maybe 2 days in a row, and I was going, I think this has got something happening, you know. Anyway, I think Jake rang me the next day, and he goes, nah, it's all off. Sorry, mate. It's like, you're in New South Wales. We got so many plans and things to do. And yeah, you know, to be fair, we don't want to muck you around and drag you along. But he never, ever tried cheapening it. You know, he just respected it and said, your catalogue's awesome and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, and that was it. I was like floored, you know, and so I was like, damn, and I was living at the farm or sleeping at the farm that night, and I slept on it, and I go, no, I'm not going to let this guy go, you know. And so I rang him back the next day, and I said, instead of you buying my business, what say I put everything I've got into, you know, goodwill and stocks and different things and, you know, catalogues or whatever, and put it into buying into your business. And he's like, that's interesting. And that sort of reignited it. And, yeah, it's where it went from there. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, you know, and I think Jake thought, well, this is kind of cool because he'll be a bit more, you know, instead of just going, wiping your hands, and just see you later. And, you know, it's pretty funny how it worked. And yeah, that was, so I came and lived in my motorhome up here for 9 months. And I
remember.
And it was, man, it was tough. It was really hard because, you know, they never put pressure on me, but I put all the pressure on myself. And it wasn't as technical. You know, we were selling cams and carbs and, you know, piston kits. I mean, they sell piston kits now. They sell a lot of stuff, but they weren't geared for the more technical side. So
yeah, they were mainly like gear and stuff like that.
It was mainly gear, yeah. And you know, so I had a knowledge of manufacturing and importing and doing all this, and Jay could see that, I guess, and the catalogue he loved. He was just out there and honest, and I went, I want this next catalogue to be so good, you know. So he never said. The only thing I think he said was, it'd be cool if we could have a catalogue. That was probably all he said. So that was my mission, you know. I just took on, I had to pull a lot of stuff out of the catalogue, all of the, you know, the carbs and cams and different things, you know. And I went, you know. Anyway, and I went, okay, I got to feed this catalogue, and I got to find and create so many more parts and really get cracking, you know. And you know, Corey came up with me from MX. He was the only, from Ballards, and it was the only guy who came up, and he sort of got into the business side with Jake. And yeah, pretty much, you know, it became me in the catalogue, let's say. You know, Jen would ring up, I'd be in a bad mood. She'd go, what's going on? You know, can I help? I go, no, there's nothing you can do. And, you know, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and because all my life was, you know, dealing with overseas people. Yeah, so many different things. It was really hard. And but anyway, I get up about 4. I go to bed pretty early, but I get up about 4. I'd answer emails and things. Then I'd push bike into Burleigh. You know, usually I'd go to the surf club, have a coffee, have an hour or so just to get some sun and some sanity. And then go back in and just keep working on stuff. And, you know, it didn't matter if it was a holiday or whatever. I pretty much do it every day. And just kept working at it, you know. And anyway, I just couldn't wait to get the first catalogue out. And in my brain at the time, it was the first catalogue. Then they're on their own, you know.
Yeah.
But in that 9 months of living up here and exploring, mainly I'm a pushy, around the area. I sort of fell in love with the area a lot, you know. I've got a great place down the mountains too, but I went, man, this is really nice. I could easily spend a lot of time here too, you know. So that's where things changed, and I bought a unit, and just decided, I'm going to mix it between the two, you know, and in a general sense it's half each, let's say, but COVID's changed a bit of stuff, and you know, these last years have been all over the place, but a bit more down there, just in, you know, I live in riding heaven down there in Hampton, and here it's different, you know. When I'm up here, I do a bit more moto sort of stuff, and you know, go to QMP and stuff like that. But which is good for me. Just a bit of.
Did you get videos of Trent's the other day?
Did I get videos of what?
From Trent's?
No.
Lockie had the bulldozer there.
Oh, okay.
So sick.
Oh, okay.
I think the next time I ride, I'm going to be going there.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of locals.
Yeah. Well, so to be honest, I don't know. You know, I'm from South, so you know, I don't know a lot of the areas and the tracks and even the places, you know. They go to Toowoomba, I go, oh, you've heard of that, where's that, you know. And I went there to the Transmoto on the weekend, you know, or near there, you know, Kubi Dam. So, you know, I mean, I know of it, but I just, brain doesn't work as good, and I was like, I'll find it, you know, it's got to be on GPS. But yeah, so anyway, that's how the merge happened, and you know, just sort of started to like the area, and it's funny. But anyway, going back to what parts do I like, it was a pretty funny conversation. It was with Jake and Hilly, and they're sort of drilling me on, you know, what do you reckon? I go, mate, you have to do this, and you know, we need to start making, you know, our own stuff and brand and blah blah. Anyway, and I'm just at that stage. I just want out, you know. I want to merge, but I want to get this catalog and just get out. And they go, well, what part of the business do you like? And I said, I hate every bloody part of it, you know. And they laughed, and
I'm done, boys. I'm done.
I'm done. And then I thought about it, and I said, no, you know what? I like you know, the catalog to some extent, and I like new products and making new products. So. And then, you know, Jake just goes, oh, yeah, okay. And so, you know, there was never any pressure from him. And obviously I'm just there, you know, working stuff for new, and there's no pressure. I just do things as it sort of comes about. There's always things in the background, but really I get to do the fun stuff. They do all the hard work, and, you know, people might look and go, oh, wow, that's a machine, and it certainly is, but crazy amount of work. Those guys work hard, you know. They're just having a go. They're putting all back into the business. They're
putting a lot into the industry too.
Oh, totally into the industry. They're every club they're behind. They've
supported this podcast for can't even remember can't even remember the first time.
Yeah, see, I don't even know a lot of the stuff. People ask me questions, I go, I don't know.
Yeah.
And they go, is it going well? I go, I guess so. There's more and more people working there, but you know.
Yeah. And like Manjimup, they supported us to go to Manjimup.
Yep.
And then in the end, the boys actually even flew over with us and were with us the whole time. Yep. So like, yeah.
Jeff, you mean? Monroe and those guys? Yeah. Okay.
So they do,
you
know, they put a lot back into the business, but they put a lot back into the sport as well.
Oh, man.
And, you know, sponsoring like the Lawrence boys and the Beatons and Wilson and Webster, all, and they don't need to right now. They don't need to sponsor anybody.
You know honestly, what I mean? They're just machines, and they're passionate, and they're really into it, and it's impressive.
Has it given you a bit of a new love for it, like kind of new energy?
Yeah, you know, I didn't have the energy, and I don't really have anything like the energy that they do for the overall stuff. You know, I try and leave, you know, Jake and the bosses alone as much as I can. I just think, man, they just got so much on their plate. I just leave them alone and play with the stuff I do. And but yeah, it's like, it's an energy. You know, you run out of energy. Like I ran out in 25 years, and then I'm done. But it's rekindled because now I get to do the fun stuff, as I said. You know, so very lucky, really.
Shout out to the Ballards foot pegs. Greatest aftermarket part that I've if you want to put one thing on you, actually I need to get my sets before this goes out, because they seriously sell out, man.
Yeah.
But those foot pegs, I reckon that's the single best thing that you can put on your bike.
That's interesting you say that. It's cool.
We sent that clip. It's funny because Jats was sitting right there yesterday, and we're doing that 125 build for
that
him
was
to do the
funny.
nationals.
I saw that.
And I was like, is there anything else you want? Because like I asked him what tyres because I don't give a fuck when he runs. Like, just if you're going to race it, let's just put the parts on it that you want, and then I don't need any money out of it. Like, we don't need the sponsors for it. And he said, I want Pirelli tyres and I want those foot pegs. And I was like, I want those foot pegs. So yes, that's 100% fine.
Well, as you know, we've had a lot of trouble keeping them in stock, but I think we're getting on top of it a bit more now, and I think Corey's doing a good job there, or a better job than we were doing. So hopefully they're in stock again, or they are soon.
They are. I've checked, but I'm going to get some before we put this up.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, no, it's definitely like an amazing partnership from my end, because it seems like it's kept you going a little bit more. And I honestly think that you're one of the best ambassadors for the sport going right now. And a lot of your generation still is, like you, Gawley, Leesky, Glenn Bell, like Craig Dack. Like, there's a lot of your generation that is really still behind the industry. But I mean, for mine, on like a personal level, I go ride with you and you give me hope. You know what I mean? You give me hope of what a life should look like. Because there's so many people that they will never commit to fully living a life on their own terms in the way that you have. And, fuck motorcycles, riding motorcycles on the weekend. Like, there's sometimes I'm so busy doing this shit and with all the life stuff that I've got going on. And then I go to the fucking QMP on Sunday, and then my bike's dirty, my gear's dirty, I hurt my shoulder, I'm fucking not eating good food because I've gotten home too late. I can't, but you had a great time. About it, there's something about it.
There is,
and there's a point in everyone's life in, like, fucking quote unquote normal society where it's like, righto, mate, put your toys down. It's time to grow up. It's time to get serious. It's time, all that cliche bullshit. And you're the dude at 62 that's just still doing the damn thing and having more fun than everybody and riding more laps than everybody. So you're the fucking hope.
Well, I feel lucky to do it, like, obviously I love it, right? That makes a big difference. But if my body started falling apart, it would get harder. And obviously it gets harder, but it's hanging in there, and like Gawley does his knee braces and all that. And it's one thing I should mention, because before Gawley ever did them or anything like that, I was racing America the first year, 84, right? I actually tore my cruciate ligament. The year I won the championship, I was going well in the race. So that was one of my throwouts. I hurt my knee, right? So it was dusty, and I hit a bank, went up and put my leg out, and I couldn't see this mound of dirt, and I hit it and hyperextended and did my cruciate ligament, right? Back in 1984, if you said the name cruciate ligament, people go, what? What's that, We didn't know anything about our knees or any of these, ligaments and things. So I never went to hospital. I never did anything. I never had any medical anyway, because couldn't afford it in America. So I just limped back to the pits, and Jan had the shits because I pulled out, no money this week sort of thing. And I just went, my knee. Anyway, never went to a doctor, never did anything, just thought, hurt my knee, right? It'll get better. And so I was just hanging around. I was coming about second or third in the championship then, so that helped, But anyway, that was the first year CTI knee braces were made. It was 84. And I said, there's these dudes in San Diego or somewhere down California anyway making these knee braces, and they make them to fit your leg and all this sort of stuff. And I'd hurt my knee, so I went, I want to get a set of these. And so they were expensive, whatever they were. And so Jen and I are having an argument because I wanted two. I wanted one for my good knee,
Yeah.
And she's going, you don't need one for that knee. And I'm going, I need one. I got to get a pair, Anyway, I approached them, and then they went, oh yeah, you're this bloke, and look, we'll give them to you for half price. And so I got two for the price of one. So I got two knee braces. So anyway, I ended up winning the championship, and they've supported me ever since. And it's probably one of the things that's helped me a lot, because I've done, forever. I've been racing and everything. And then, I went in the Baja once down in 91, I think it was, and my hotel burnt down. I lost everything, all my riding gear and all that stuff. And so I just came back via the States and went and saw them again. They made me another set, and they've been supporting me ever since. But every now and then I think, man, I think those things have made a huge difference, you know. Like, my knees aren't great by any means, but I never have had my cruciate ligament fixed, which is quite out there.
And it doesn't hinder you?
Not really. So I didn't even know I hurt it, right? I mean, I knew I hurt my knee.
But you wouldn't have even known what it was.
I didn't know what it was, and I kept racing in America for the 3 years. And then, so this is 92. So, okay, I heard it so 8 years later, I'm back in Australia, and I'm running XRs only, and I'm in a race, and I'm putting pressure on the side of the tank to help turn the bike, and I get some, you know, meniscus or something jammed in the joint, you know, and it's like, you know, it's killing me. So I go, damn, I got to go and get this knee looked at. So I went to this surgeon, and he did an arthroscope, you know, booked me in and all that for a day surgery, and come back with all the pictures and everything. And anyway, he says, you've torn your cruciate ligament. I go, I didn't even put my leg on the ground. He goes, no, you've done it like years ago. And he described it how it was supposed to be up here, and it pulled off the bone, and it wiggled around like lowly worm he was showing me. And then he said, and it's stuck on the side, and it's joined. It's growing back on the side. And so I said, oh, so it's joined again. He goes, yeah, but it's doing nothing. It's got to be cut and pulled way up the top and pulled tension, you know. And this is 92. So this is the first year the 6 day has been in the Southern Hemisphere, and it's the oldest running motorsport race in the world, you know. I'm Mr. Enduro in Australia at the time. I'm not going to miss the 92 6 day, you know, which was in, where was it? Cessnock, yeah. So I just said, well, okay, that's cool, but later, you know.
Yeah.
And he cleaned it up, and it felt pretty good. Anyway, so, you know, it didn't worry me all that much, you know. And so over the years, I stuffed it again. And then, you know, so one more time went in there, and he goes, oh, man, you know, it's not good. Like, you're running out of meniscus. You better get it fixed. Yeah, sure, soon, you know. But every time he went in there and cleaned it out, it felt like a million. I couldn't even hardly tell which was my bad knee. It was like, wow, that's awesome. These arthroscopes and clean outs. So then I went to another 6 day, and now it's the Czech Republic, not Czechoslovakia, and I stabbed the ground, lost the front, or did something, you know, and it was normal, hurting me, pain, blah, blah. But this time I'd really done a good job, and I had, you know, kind of broken into the femur, and it took a chunk out of it just from the compression. Anyway, the dude had all these photos, and he said, oh, man, he described it as the horse is bolted. And he said, all I've done is round it off a bit, and he suggests I just swim and ride bicycles or something to help. Anyway, I was freaking out. And he also said the most you'll ever get out of your knee is 10 years, and then you have to get an artificial knee, and that freaked me out. So I knew a guy in the mountains who was a bit of a guru, and I asked him, and he said, oh, yeah, that guy's a good surgeon, but he's a surgeon and they don't believe in a lot of other stuff, but glucosamine is something you maybe should get onto. And I rang Gawley, and he goes, yeah, glucosamine. And so I've been on it ever since. And, man, talk about, for me, I don't know about other people, but for me, it transformed things, and everything just started feeling better. And that was, so that was about 16 or 17 years ago, the last time. And the guy told me the most I would ever go is 10 years and a new knee. And it's like it's fine. Everything's spot on.
I have not missed a day of taking glucosamine.
Oh, good. Yeah, I told you. Get into it. Yeah.
Since we spoke, I hurt my shoulder at QMP like when we rode.
Spill.
It's not bad. It's just I just wouldn't be smart to ride on it. You know, if I had to do a 6 day or something, I'd probably go and do it. But the rest of my body. Because like my problem, like I was telling you with jiu-jitsu, is like my fingers hurt.
Yeah,
like,
right.
So it's funny that all my life riding, I just got arm pump real bad. I had shit technique, which was also a cause of it. But as soon as I started jiu-jitsu, arm pump gone.
Wow,
just completely gone. Because in the gi, you're grabbing like the big thick material, and all you're doing is grips the entire time. And what people are trying to do is you've got one hand gripping on a collar or a sleeve, and then they're getting their two hands and they're breaking that grip.
Yeah.
So like you're doing holding it. You're doing these crazy like guys do pull ups on towels and like holding towels and stuff to like strengthen their grip for jiu-jitsu. But man, my fingers and hands just get so fucking sore from training, and like feet from people like trying to like foot lock you, ankle lock you and stuff like that. So like I get up in the mornings after training and like my body is so sore. And it's funny, one of my coaches, he bought me the glucosamine.
Yeah, well,
and I didn't. I just take it sporadically. Yeah, I take it sporadically. But yeah, since you told me, I literally haven't missed a day, and I do feel quite a lot better.
Well, to me, you have to take it for a month, and I can't remember, but I just went, well, this is my only chance. That says take it every day. I'll just do it every day, and I'd still do it every day. Every now and then there's something happens maybe, but basically every day. And, it just gets, for me anyway, I'm sure there's people who have said I've tried it properly.
And it doesn't work.
Maybe, but man, for me it's just like second chance,
That's crazy, just a supplement. I was trying to explain this to my dad, because my dad's like the quintessential fucking blue collar dude that's just like, fucking that won't work, this won't work, this
mechanical.
Won't work. And like, just one supplement, one bit of powder every day, and you can, and you would know, like, you're a guy that is, your life has been spent behind bars riding. You've probably ridden a motorcycle as much as anybody. So like you would have the metrics to know. Well,
I've done a lot of riding, and to me it's been proof. I had smashed my elbow. I mean, I've never broken an arm or a leg or a collarbone.
Crazy to me.
So people think, man, you've raced for 50 years and you must have broken some things. I go, fingers, and broke in America. I broke some bones in my foot. I got an elbow injury, so I have had that. But basically, wear and tear. Like, really, if I was a footballer, I'd be a basket case, wouldn't I?
And so in your mind, do you have any like idea of when you slow down from all the riding? And
not really, do
you have like a number in mind?
No,
or it's not even on your radar?
No, not really. No.
That's probably the move.
Yeah, like obviously it just depends, but the way I'm feeling now is like, let's go riding now. Like, that's how I feel. So, but I mightn't feel like that next year. I might have something going on, but, while you feel good, there's nothing much that's as good as riding bikes. So, love doing it. And it's hard to stop, as I said. So, yeah, it's easy to keep going at the moment. And, I definitely don't feel handicapped by age in any real way. So
you still smoke me.
Yeah, it's fun. I just love riding. Yeah.
So these new forks that you're on. So I'm a big fork guy.
Oh yeah,
I'm a big fork guy.
Yep.
So you've gone from the TTR 250 forks.
Yep.
As the staple. I've ridden you. I've ridden your 350.
Have you? Oh yeah, you have too. Yeah.
Almost fucking cartwheeled over a berm because you use three fingers for your front brake.
Oh yeah, that's a problem. Yeah.
I was not accustomed to that. You even gave me warning, and I was like, and I felt it, and I was like, okay, that's different. And then I went out the track and almost endoed. So I've ridden you. I've ridden your 350 with TTR forks. And
but even Toby liked that, right? He rode it and he went, wow, let's get some traction on the front wheel. And he was, anyway, keep going, sorry.
So then the next contraption I rode was your 350 with these new forks. What are these bad boys?
Okay, there's a guy in Canberra called Suspension, what's he call himself? Suspension Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got no connection at all, except I'm a selfish dude and came across somehow they wanted me to test this front end. He didn't say much about it.
Has he got photos of it online anywhere, you reckon? Or is it like all pre-pro?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, if you go to Suspension Smith,
because this was wild.
So if you go to his site and go to that, KTM there, Suspension
Which
Smith.
One? That one?
Yeah, I think that's Yeah, that's one. So that's a 21 model.
There's another fork down there too. That one's loading slow.
Yeah, well, that's my bike. That's the earlier triple clamp.
Yeah, right.
It's a little bit different than what you're looking at now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a linkage fork. So it's got a lot of it's kind of a girder fork, and the girder doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, but it's what its difference is it's still got the same wheelbase as a normal bike. So people think, oh, it's pushed out, but it's a steeper fork angle, which gives it more trail. So it makes it steered better,
really good.
And it gives it well, you've ridden it
really
good.
And
it makes it react to bumps better because the suspension wants to go together better. The more you make a bike a chopper, the more it wants to push the bike back towards you instead of rolling over stuff. So he's up to he's done different versions, and it's got a lot of merit. I mean, right now I feel like I've gone backwards a little bit. I'm trying a different thing slightly, and I was having a bit of setup problem, but
since we rode.
Yeah, I changed it. I tried
to
make
the harder spring.
No, I thought I bought it. I wished I did, but I couldn't find it. I think I've left it back in the mountains, so that was disappointing. So after we rode the next Thursday, I went, I'm going to ride some motocross, so I'm going to try and do a few things, and I pretty much stuffed it up.
What'd you do?
Oh, I just figured, more compression, for moto, it's got high and low speed on the shock, so you got different things to work with. It's a bit out there that way. So you got high and low speed on the compression and rebound on the shock.
Yeah.
And then it's an air fork we're using, so you've got air pressure on the top, but he's made it so there's another Schrader valve underneath.
Yeah.
I don't understand a lot of the reasons and everything, but he shortens the fork by 30 mil, and the triple clamp now moves up 60 mil. So there's actually 30 mil more travel, but people see it.
But it looks
like it's really low, yeah. And so people go, it looks soft in the front because they're only looking at the distance from the tyre to the mudguard. Yeah. They don't realise the triple clamp moves 60 mil. So that's a bit frustrating. I get to people saying, it looks too soft in the front. But so I actually stuffed it up and made it too hard. I finally figured out. I did the 8 hour at, the Transmoto. Yeah. And I had a pretty bad setup, and I went into there. It gets pretty rough, and I was struggling. Like I was just going, man, this is not right. And still steered well, but it just wasn't working right. And so I battled with a setup, and then I eventually went back to basics. And the last 2 laps, so the roughest 2 laps, and it was back to good again. It was great.
Yeah.
So I just there's more to learn for me because it's not conventional. You look at things and you think, that, and yeah. So once it's set up and I stop playing with it and trying to do some stupid things, then I think it's going to be a better setup. But, Laurie's a smart guy. He's made versions like that green Kawasaki there. That's his. I think.
Wow, that thing's crazy.
Maybe it's not, or is it? It's so out there, but I think that's his. I'm not sure about that. It looks like his.
That's probably too out there for a.
I know.
You know what I mean? In terms of a commercial model.
I know. That's the shame about it because everybody just I haven't ridden that bike, and that bike didn't work as well as there's another one that has the frame modified and it's a KTM 350.
Yeah.
And that's the first one I rode, and also Ben Grabham rode. And it was a funny test session because I rode this bike. The guy said, could you test it? And I go, yeah, cool, just bring it up. I didn't know much about it, and when it got there, I went, whoa, look at this thing. It's out there. So, I've done plenty of testing before with different people and brands and everything. Oh, that's the Yamaha. Yeah, we're trying that at the moment. But
that looks like you could sell me that bike.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You could sell me that as like a commercial. Yeah. I would put that on my 350, go to the track or do a motocross race or whatever.
Yeah. Well, what's the shame about what you're saying is it's just how people think.
It's a perception,
It's a perception, and it's like, Yeah, it's weird. But, you know, like if Roxon started winning on a bike that looked like that Kawasaki, everybody go, oh, you got to have this new suspension, you know.
Yeah.
It's just the way it works. But anyway, I haven't ridden the Kawasaki, but the second evolution of that modified frame and everything is unbelievable.
Really?
It's better than what I'm doing now. But
so it's they modify the frame for that.
Yes. And so Laurie started figuring out... well, to give you an idea how it happened, so my KTM that I have at the moment is... Oh, I'll jump back a bit more. So then he brought it up and I rode it and I just went, oh my God, I just couldn't believe it. And I was so familiar with my track back in the mountains, you know, and we know it, we flog around it all the time, and it's got some nasty shit. People come there and go, man, this is so gnarly, and we go, no, it's awesome, we love it. There's ruts everywhere and big bumps that push you out of the corners, you know, braking bumps that if you're braking or you're just going to spring out of the whole corner, you know, that sort of stuff. Anyway, I jumped on this bike and I just went, oh my God, I can't believe how good it was. A bit soft, that one. It was made a bit more for trail, you know. Anyway, but it was unbelievable. It was really unbelievable. And so I was trying to get my head around it, you know. And anyway, I think that Ben Grabham's probably one of, if not the best tester that I've ever known.
Yeah,
know?
Really?
He's really good. Yeah, he's been to Japan with us and he's also done stuff over his career where, you know, he's changed steering head angles on gas and went to the 4-day and won it outright on a 125, you know. And he's lengthened swing arms like big time on bikes, and we've done it later and gone, yeah, that is the best thing. I just think he's got some merit, you know. Yeah, so...
that's super cool.
Anyway, so I didn't know what to say to this guy. I was pretty much so impressed, but I was thinking, am I imagining it? It's this good, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, and I said, you know what would be good is if you got Ben Grabham to ride this bike and get his opinion on it too. But I said, I think it's amazing. He goes, funny you say that because he's actually riding it this weekend. And I go, oh, great. Anyway, and they said, what's the downsides and all that? And I said, well, there's not a lot. And I go, I know it's heavier because there's more going on at the front. But it's like when you change the offset of a triple clamp, you know, one way is going to make the bike feel heavier and the other is not. So I said, I think there's something playing in its favour because I know there's a few kilos, there's probably 3 kilos more with the conventional, not the conventional fork, but with the non-air fork, you know. Anyway, I said, I can feel a bit more weight, so that's a downside, but there's so many plus, you know. But anyway, that's a downside. And he goes, well, we're thinking of putting an air fork on it and... you know, we can save 1.5 kilos with an air fork.
Yeah.
I went, oh, okay. And he goes, I've got an air fork and I'm actually going to try and, you know, he has to shorten and do a few things to it. And he goes, and Ben's going to try him this weekend. So I went, oh, wow, that's exciting and that's cool. And I want a part of this, you know. I just want a bike like this. I'm thinking, I'm interested, you know. So I said to Laurie, let me know how it goes, you know. Anyway, and he just came back. He's not a sensationalist or anything, and he just said, yeah, Ben really liked it, you know, but he liked the air fork better than the fork that was in it, you know, more conventional, not conventional, but upside down, but, you know.
Yeah.
And
like a
I went, oh, yeah, oh, that's interesting. And so, yeah, from there, I just, yeah, still sleeping at night going, I think I need one of these. I need it, you know. So then I'm thinking air fork. So I went down to Sutto's in Penrith, you know, when I was in the mountains and said, do you guys make an EXC with an air fork? And he goes, nah. I go, okay. I'm thinking, oh, maybe I've got to get an SFX or something. He goes, oh, sorry. No, actually, yeah, we do. There's a new one coming out, but you've got to order it. And it's the WES S model, the West model. And it's a celebration of hard enduro or something, and it's going to come out with an air fork. I said, beauty, put me down, I want to buy one. And so at that time I'm thinking, I want to do this, and I'm going to buy a Kato 350, because that's what I'd ridden before, but an earlier model, you know, and I go, I want the air fork. So then I went through a period of trying to find a frame, and I was asking guys, is the 17 SFX frame or whatever going to be any good? You know, is it the same as the EXC? And they were going, no, you know. And it was all too hard because I was thinking, Laurie's going to hacksaw the whole front off this bike, you know.
Yeah.
And it's brand new. Like, it's the latest model. And I think I wanted to just try it on another frame, you know. Anyway, in the end, I couldn't find one, so I go, you know what? I don't care. I'm just going to do it. And so I rang up Laurie, said, I've got the bike, and I'm bringing it down. I want you to do your magic, you know. And he said, well, hang off, because I've bought one of those. I told him I was going to buy it. I said I'd ordered it, you know. And he went and got one. And he said, look, this is what I want to do. He goes, I want to actually make it so you can bolt it on to the steering head. So you don't have to, you know, scare the guy with when you bring it in, he's holding the hacksaw or something. And I went, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a pretty big barrier to entry if you've got to hack your frame.
Yeah, but I was prepared to do it, you know, because that's how much I thought this thing works good. And anyway, so he said, let's just... leave it. You just keep your bike standard and you ride it and get used to it. And he goes, I'm going to do this next evolution to this thing, you know. Yeah. And it's the best way to test, because that's what you do when you test for Yamaha or anything. They don't want to know anything unless you've compared it. Yeah, you can jump on a bike and go, that's awesome. And they go, against what?
Yeah.
You know, like, unless you've ridden the old model, how do you know what you're talking about? So anyway, so I kept my bike standard. And he bought up his bike, and same model, everything, and 350, everything same. And so I did some laps on my bike. I'm familiar with the track anyway. And he goes, what do you think of your bike? I said, I like it. It's a good bike. And, you know, I wasn't a real fan of Air Forks before, but the new generation seems good. I like it, you know. So... he goes, yeah, cool. So then I jumped on his bike and I did some laps, and I just went, oh my God. I came in and just went, man, it's so much better. So that was it. So that was the earlier silver triple clamp setup, and, you know, now he's changed a few little things, and it's anodized black now. It's just slightly different. Anyway, yeah, that's where I'm at, you know, but in some ways, it's compromised. You know, that the weirdest looking one is the best one. But,
yeah, really?
Yeah, it's a different ratio or something. It's not, the green one's not a good example, maybe. That was the very first one. But
we'll go to that one there, Rains, or like the top one?
No, you got to be looking for a... just if you go to his site and you go to... just
he had
bikes.
The website was there, Suspension Smith. No, there.
Yeah, and then just, images, and you'll find a weird looking...
Is that it, or there's a .com.au go back?
No, he's in Fishwick, so that'll be it.
Oh, okay, that must have been it. Sorry.
But it's just under... Well, you might have just updated and got all fancy, but...
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, but that's not the one to look at. I can't believe... I've been there before, and it's... just look through. Is there more images or whatever? Anyway, Guy Burney is the guy who owns the bike now, but it's a Kato. Anyway, it looks similar, I suppose, but it's a bit more refined than that one. Maybe it doesn't stick out as far, but it was unbelievable.
That was the best one, eh?
Yeah, that was the best one. But it's see, there's the bottom left there. That's the two bikes. So that's my bike standard, and that's his one.
Yeah, right. And so, it doesn't look that much different there.
No, once you use the existing steering head, you know, it's more back to basics. And but yeah, it's you know, in some ways it's not been fun, because you know, when I rode it, I just went, I want that, you know. And then you know, some people might think I've got some sort of interest outside of just riding it, but it's really just I want a bike better than anyone else. So that's all it is. But you know, I've spent so many years, you know, changing, developing, trying to improve, and a bit over it. And it's like when I left Yamaha in 2012, I was like, this is awesome, I'm free, you know. And so I went out and bought a Honda and a KTM or a Hasselberg or something. I just ride all these bikes, and I go, I can ride whatever I want. And it's been good, you know. So I've tried to continue to do that. I don't try and get any connection to any brand, you know. I just want to ride a bike and say what I think about it. And so it's good that way. I've finally got some freedom, you know, because it's I can do it, you know. I'm now free as such, you know. So I just ride what I want to ride, and I must admit, I've got some great bikes, and I've got a Beta, the X Trainer, I think they call it, and that's a great bike for hard enduro. It's so light, and it's, you know, I'm trying to change things a little bit on that, but I'm not totally into changing stuff for the hell of it, you know. I don't really put much stuff on my bikes, but And I've had 350 KTMs, which are great all-rounder stuff, certainly good. But the 21 Yamaha 450 is like, I want to say it's my favourite. I'm fastest on that bike. There's no doubt about it. It's the quickest bike, but it wears me out a bit quicker, So for more cross-country events or something, I'm probably going to overall go a bit quicker on the Kato maybe, So now I'm playing around with the suspension and doing stuff, but hopefully soon we'll get something set, and Laurie's getting some sort of telemetry, I think you call it, because it's hard for me. We've been really close, and I drifted away, and I talked to him about it and said, man, I wrecked it, I don't know. And it's really hard to know where you are. You've got so many more variables. So many options. And I was actually pretty close, and, one of the things you learn over the years is change one thing at a time, It's, but in the last few situations, it's been not easy to do that, running out of time. And I was sharing a bike with Zai. I don't know if you know Zai. He's a surfer.
From Noosa? Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a good surfer, and he's sponsored by Deus. And, Peter rang up and said, can you loan this guy a bike for the event? And I go, well, I'm thinking of going, but I'm not riding. And then, yeah, I can do that. And then the guys from work said, someone's pulled out of their team. We had a mixed team, with Amy and Nigel, and, there was a four-man, one girl and three guys, and then everyone except Nigel was still there. But anyway, it looked grim. They said, we need you, I said, okay. So then I ended up doing laps, and it was good, but I was trying to feed the bike as much as I could to Zai, and he's a great guy and polite and everything, and he was happy to get the bike, and I was thinking he's going to love this thing, but I'd stuffed it like the day before. Friday I'd been playing and I'd got lost, Anyway, and I hadn't ridden it again. I'd sort of changed a few things back, but I had done such a bad job, Anyway, he went out and rode it and came in, and I was expecting him to go, wow, and he went, it feels a bit weird or something. And I was going, give me that bike, So then I went and rode it, and I was like, man, I'm nearly dying on this thing. I was just struggling.
I can't imagine it being that bad after how good it was when I rode it.
I can't either. I just completely stuffed it. And I know exactly what I've done wrong now. And it kept feeling like it was bottoming, but it was It wasn't. It was like hydraulic locking in a way, because I had way too much compression damping in the shock.
Oh, yeah.
And it kept feeling like it was bottoming, so I kept going harder, but it wasn't. And it's easy to measure a fork for bottoming, but it's not easy to measure the little shock,
Yeah.
Anyway, so I've learned a lot, and the last two laps, the roughest two laps I did, I was only supposed to do one, and Nigel could tell that I was having a good time and did a much better time, and he, I came in to swap the transponder. He said, do you want to do another one? Yeah. So I just went out and had another one, and I loved it again. I was back, and it was so good to ride the bike set up properly again. So, that's where I finished. So I finished on a good note, which was much more fun than battling around and feeling sketchy, like you wanted to crash every second corner,
Yeah.
So, it was great fun in the end, and we had a good time.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed riding it. I'd love to ride it again and try and have like a
you and Sam. It was so funny. I was telling Laurie about it, and he was laughing because I said, especially when Sam, you were injured when you rode it, so it was a bit harder and a few things. But yeah, it was hilarious. Even still,
that's what I was gonna say. Like, I was hurt. Like, I wouldn't have rode. Like, I only did it just to do it. Like, I had to ride the bike.
Yeah.
But I mean, I still did like a few laps before my shoulder really stopped working.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was super cool.
Yeah, it's got a lot of potential. It's going to be interesting to see if, I honestly believe that it's got a lot going for it. And
I do too, yeah.
Out of all these years of suspension, we can go back to damper rods. Then we went to the big deal was when we went to cartridge, like Honda's 86 went to cartridge, and then we went upside down, and the first ones of those were shockers, but everybody thought they wanted them, so it was all that thing that happens in selling stuff. And we've had cartridge, twin chamber and cone valve, and going back to the TDR forks, like I've got cone valve and I've got twin chamber WP. I've got all this stuff. I'm trying it all. And the funny thing about the TDR is it shouldn't work, It shouldn't work. And there'd be a million suspension guys out there saying, oh, the guy's lost his marbles, But going way back, it all kind of started because a mate of mine, Miles Davis, came up to our farm. We had a moto track at the time, and we had a TDR just for fun, as a sort of a farm bike, And Miles was on a 360 Husky or something back then, and he was flying around. I thought, I'm going to chase him down on this trail bike, and they're gutless, They feel like they're tied to a tree, but the suspension was amazing on the fork, And so coming into corners, I had so much traction, and I could reel him in so much, Coming into corners, I'm going, man, it's unbelievable. And I just remembered that. And then I had Ben Burrell come and ride for us, and he was an unknown, but he was a good little rider, and he was and his old man was a good mate of mine, Fudge, and he kept saying, my son's flying, and we used to see it all the time with everyone else, but his son was only maybe, 14 maybe at the time, but he was riding a CRF 150. And he's telling us how good he is. And I know he'd be good because Fudge is, he's a realist. He's telling the way it is. And I go, yeah, I know he's good, but man, he's too young for our team, And anyway, so then we just go, let's put him under the pump and test him. And we go, yeah, this kid's good, let's do it. And we've never, ever had, anyone on a YZ85 or anything. It's not us, We had an off-road team, and it was just proper adult people, and we go, what are we going to put him on? And so we go, well, he didn't weigh anything. It was like 50 kilos or something, less. And so we go, okay, YZ125, at least it's a proper bike, and so he was pretty tiny, this kid, and so we limited the shock, we put a linkage on it or something, and we lowered it a bit. And I just has a hunch he's the smartest kid ever, and just amazing. Like, he's a farmer kid. He's combine harvesters when he was a little kid, and just all the farmers loved him. He was mechanical. He could rebuild four-stroke. He was like the freak kid, Anyway, so I said, okay, this is the deal. The most important thing is that you don't kid yourself. That's number one, So, but I said, I've got this hunch that this fork could be really good for you, because the problem with light bikes and any bike, the relationship between the unsprung weight and the sprung weight is a really big deal, And if they could make wheels half the weight and tyres as they are, our bikes would handle twice as good,
Yeah.
So when, a YZ125 wheel weighs the same as a YZ450 wheel, right? It's no different, but the bike, the mass is less. So when you hit things, they want to deflect more, because that's the way it is. Like, if it was a Queen Mary and it had these little toothpicks underneath it, well, you're not going to move the Queen Mary. The toothpicks are going to move,
Yeah.
So it's part of it, So anyway, I just knew that, they're sketchy and they're deflective, and we're trying to pick our way through trees, so we don't need, too much movement, and we want confidence we're going where we want to go, not where deflection's going to put you, So anyway, I had a hunch this might be good, and so I put it, I gave it to him. His old man was clever, and I said, here it is, you do it, like, get some bushings made up, because you're sleeving down an upside down fork into this conventional, and just try it, Anyway, he came back a week or two later, and he goes, yeah, GB, it's, it's awesome. And I go, right, so you tested properly? Yeah, I've swapped it back and forward 3 or 4 times, and every track I'm quicker with the TDR. And I go, wow, there you go. All right, that's good, and he's not kidding himself, because he's like that, So anyway, he comes out, and he's in the juniors, in the off-road sort of stuff, and he comes out and just smashes them, and anyway, he won juniors for a couple of years, and he went and did I don't know if he did any Australian motocross champs on it, but he did New South Wales motocross and stuff like that with this crazy front end, But anyway, he loved it. He just thought it was the best thing ever. And then we had Jess Gardner come onto the team, and we went, it could be good for her too, And anyway, so we set her up with it, and she just started going unreal and, you know, dominating and loving it. And we did proof, you know, we did back and forward and all that. In fact, we had this craziest thing where ADB came to our farm with you know, girls, and they were saying how fast are these girls really, you know, like on this sort of a natural train, sort of a moto track, but quite technical, you know, stuff. And the editor was going to ride against them and, you know, write it down. And I think we had Tori there maybe, and there was 2 moto girls, and there was Jess and Gemma Wilson.
Yep.
So they sort of had 2 moto girls and 2 enduro girls. And anyway, no one really, Jess was just into the game, you know. And anyway, they all got heaps of practice on the track, and it was awesome conditions. Everything was great. And anyway, they're flying around, and we timed them over 2 laps, and then we stop them. The first thing we ask them was, how'd you go? Because if they said, I ran over a boom, fell off, and you go, okay. But, you know, none of them did, and they all had a time, you know. And anyway, Jess Gardner smashed them. And I think it was Tori, and she had a motocross, a YZF 250 or something like that, you know. And anyway, I think she was annoyed by the whole thing, like, this isn't wrong. That just doesn't look right. And you could tell she was just like, what the hell? What do you mean this girl beat us, you know? And she didn't just beat us. I think she had like 5 seconds or something, you know? Anyway, then she comes over and she said, can I have a ride on this bike? And we always wanted them to, you know, to have the WR, right, over the YZ, because, you know, they were all the YZs at that time were non-electric start. So, you know, they'd fall down. They had trouble. They'd lose a lap, you know, trying to start them. And we go, yeah, but, you know, there's merit in the other one. It's a bit heavier, but it's good. You know, it's got a bit more flywheel and stuff like that. Anyway, so she goes out to do a lap, and she only does like a third of a lap. And she comes across and she goes, time me on this. So went righto. So she hasn't even done a lap. She's used to her bike. She jumped on this bike and she did 2 laps, and then she smashed Jess's time by like another 3 or 4 seconds. So she went like 7 or 8 seconds over 2 laps faster on a bike she hadn't even done 1 lap on. Anyway, and then, you know, the first thing I asked her, how'd you go? Yeah, good, you know. What do you think of the forks? Oh, not much. That's all she said, you know. She just didn't want to accept it, you know. It was sort of funny. And then when they told her the time, she's like, oh, my God, you know.
That's
anyway,
wild,
it was pretty wild. So, but they went on for years. And so pretty soon into that, I went, I'm going to do it, you know. And so I started doing it. Also, the axle was in a slightly different spot, and I think it helped the Yamaha a little bit too in another way, you know. Anyway, I kept doing it. I was going, man, this thing just does not wear you out. And I used to, you know, I was doing all the off-roads then, and I just pretty much dominated them. And, you know, sometimes I'd have a cross-country on the Saturday, 3 hours, ours was less, 2 or 2.5 or something, but still physical. And, you know, I felt fresh as the daisy compared to the other guys. The other guys saying, I don't even think I can ride tomorrow. And I'm going, yeah, really? It just doesn't wear you out, you know. And honestly, I think I ran that thing in the Yamaha for like 10 years. And people were just going, you're nuts. I go, have you tried it? You know? And I was always amazed that no one went, you know, you can go to the Wreckers and buy a TDR complete front end for $200.
Yeah.
You know, but no one tried it. And, you know, they all think I'm that good a rider, or I'm trying to make it harder for myself. I'm not, you know.
Yeah.
And
it's just part of like this unicorn mystique.
And I bought some suspension. I go, yeah, it's good, but I think I still prefer that. I kept back, you know, I try stuff all the time. I mean, I never stop, but there's not a lot wrong with them, you know. So it's and over the years, what was also funny was we tried to make them a little bit better because they feel weird. They feel really active, but they feel like they need more rebound.
Yeah.
But if you give them more rebound, they sort of don't work. And anyway, we had different, through the years of race team forever, we had different suspension people looking after us, and we tried with them, and we could never get them as good as standard. But you had to go to a heavier spring, and they were really critical on the oil viscosity. Crazy fork, different than everything else, but a lot of merit. But I know, I've been copping it for years with the guy. The guy has definitely lost his marbles, but it is crazy that, you can win a lot of races and no one goes, maybe I should try that. I've had friends riding bikes, and, even recently, one of my mates, his kid's bro, and he's, been riding forever, and he's got, $1 million forks in his bike, and he rode mine and just went, wow, it's got a lot of merit. So I don't know, maybe we should change the subject on that bloody forks and the TDR is it's hard, but anyway, anyone who's tried it knows they work all right. But yeah,
they definitely do. Well, hey, we've almost done 4 hours, mate.
No.
Yeah.
Why didn't you warn me?
Well, that's what we do. There will be a lot of people. There will be a lot of people that are very stoked to hear you talk.
Oh, cool. Long. Yeah, sorry it took so. I didn't realise.
Nah, hey, that's perfect.
Must have been having a bit of fun. So that's good.
I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Good.
We definitely. There's so much stuff we didn't talk about.
Yeah.
But
no worries.
That's only natural. We'll do it again. Yeah. I am so stoked we finally did it. Hopefully,
thanks, mate.
Hopefully we can have a ride this weekend. I'll be pretty stoked.
Yeah, that would be good.
And
let's do it. Beauty.
We'll do it again.
Good on you, Jace. Thanks.
Cheers. Thanks, mate.
Are you serious?
Goes quick, eh? It's the vortex. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.